Sorry, my son's over here. He's
ready
to
guest
play with him. Miles,
guest on the podcast. Say hi.
Miles, tell him, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
Let's go. There you go. Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 35, State of the Revolution 2021, featuring Ryan Giffin and Vlad Ivanov. Today is Sunday, the 19th of December, 2021. This is going to be the final Christmas, 2021 episode. So enjoy it. And this would be the last one for the year. So I don't know. I'll do a proper sign off at the end of the episode, I guess. But I'm your host, Jeremy. Same as always. Jet is producing, and I got to welcome my two guests to the show. So first off, returning guest Ryan Giffin, who is a BCH content creator, or just a general finance content creator. He was on the show in episode 15, so definitely glad to have him back. And he has recently acquired a bit of an equestrian interest, I believe. So big moves happening there. Welcome back to the show, Ryan. How's things?
Awesome. Thanks for having me back. I think things are going well. I think this is my first year of pretty much mainly producing Bitcoin Cash content. In the bear market, the only two cryptocurrencies I was buying was Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash. And then when the bull market started, and actually during the eCash fork, I was kind of on the fence on which way that whole thing was going to go. Which side was going to get the developer fund and who got to hold the BCH symbol. And then after all that kind of fell into place, I became a BCH content creator after that. And I've been doing it for over a year since. I was back with Jeremy here, episode 15, you said?
Yeah.
6 or 7 months ago. So hosted my first annual Bitcoin Cash tournament. Had Bitcoin Jesus, Roger Ver there, had Mark Felzon there, had a lot of cool people in the crypto space, had some crypto miners. Going to keep that event going and looking forward to what 2022 brings for Bitcoin Cash, and excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely mega. And Vlad, kind of similar story, maybe a new gun on the scene. I don't know. You've had a YouTube channel for a while, longer than me, definitely for sure. But it would have been definitely after that episode that I did with Ryan. At a certain point, you started making BCH sort of related videos and talking about it a bit more, and started following your content there and so on, right? So give yourself a bit of an introduction to people listening to the podcast.
Well, so my name is Vlad. First of all, I run a Bitcoin Cash YouTube channel. Aside from that, I run a moving company. I've been doing that for quite some time, but I've always looked into new things to invest my money in, because I don't personally believe in keeping money in the banks and taking their low percentages and having them convince you that that's a good return on your investment. So I really got into crypto, and then I started originally looking into Bitcoin, just the main three off Robinhood, and then Bitcoin Cash kind of caught my eye really strongly when I saw the 2017 price. And me and Ryan have talked back and forth of what really happened at that time. Could you have really gotten away with the 4K? Could you have really sold that? But that price originally kind of got me, because I was a numbers guy originally, and then I started really deep diving into Bitcoin Cash, and then I'm wait, this makes a lot more sense than Bitcoin. I really like this a lot more. And then I started to really get into it. I started creating content. My YouTube channel says it's been around since 2012, but I really started making Bitcoin Cash content at the same time, Jeremy, that you probably started the podcast in January. And that's when I really started to kind of just push it to the crowd, because I want people to know how good of a cryptocurrency this is. And I just haven't stopped since.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely been, that's something we can talk about in this episode, I think, but a little bit, but it's kind of been the story of this year. I think that you started to see sort of that grassroots element return to BCH, because for, many years it's been involved in kind of fork drama and sort of the old crowd, sort of battling it out for control, and kind of the rest of the market moving on with DeFi and everything like that. But in 2021, it's had a bit of a resurgence. So let's just start off with, as always, we usually talk about the price. So that's first up. So today, $438 per BCH, and one BTC is 107.9 BCH. So two important things to notice here. I think the first thing was that I checked, and at the start of the year, BCH was ranked number 9 at $444, and ranked 24 at $438. So basically the price hasn't really changed in that whole 12 months. You could have been in a coma and you would come back and be like, okay, nothing's changed, but the whole market has kind of surged forward ahead. But I think it's, it's obviously delusional from my point of view to think that nothing has changed in BCH in that whole 12 months. There's been enormous growth in my mind. And so that's really just the classic indicator of why people who are stressed out about the price, like obviously the price is one indicator, but you definitely can't look at it, as the one and only metric, because it's sort of only more relevant on the scale of like, a 3 or a 5 year kind of time frame. Because if you said that BCH was worth less now than 1 year ago, after it's had a whole year of no drama and massive growth, that would be insane, I think. Or I guess what Ryan always says I like is, he says price is what you pay and value is what you get. So maybe the price is lower but the value is higher. And the other thing I wanted to touch on as well too, and give you guys a chance to comment on, is that the 100K BTC laser ray, it didn't happen. Basically, I mean, we've got another week or something. Maybe I'll eat my words. Maybe there'll be a huge, rally right at the end of the year. But BTC is still under 50K, so it's got to double in price in under 2 weeks, which is of course not impossible. But if you rewound the clocks back to more the start of the year, everybody was like, "Oh, we're rocketing up," 30K, 40K, 50K, 60K. We're going to 100K. Everybody was posting their memes on Twitter, the whole laser ray profile picture, but it didn't really come together. As much as excitable as everybody was about the bull run, maybe we'll see it early in January or in February, the super cycle. But I've been the whole year kind of saying, I'm not convinced that it is going to be this gigantic super cycle. So far we haven't seen it. So Ryan, you're first up. What do you think on the price across the year?
I think you brought up some really good points, because a year ago, we were not sending as much value across the network. We did not have SmartBCH. We didn't have as many daily transactions. So if you just look at the fundamentals and the price, there's not a great correlation there. But I can't. Where you were bearish for a time and thought the bull market had peaked earlier, and going back and forth like Cowen from Cowen Talks Crypto, and everyone's got this thesis on what does this bull cycle mean, right? And I think I'm still following the Trollo. I really like the work that Mark DeMessel would do. He doesn't make so much content now. I know he's been on the show before, but I really, since 2017, I've been following his work, and I still don't see why we don't get the blow off top later. But I'm definitely not running to cash yet. I don't see why there's any reason to take profits right now. I don't think if that's the case, it just wasn't a parabolic enough of a market to profit take, which, Jeremy, I don't think you're that kind of person in the market. I think you don't care to touch fiat no matter what the price. And I probably shared in that, but the pain that I went through in 2017 was one that I was like, I'm going to take profits next time. So who knows how this ends up, but I definitely think Bitcoin Cash is seriously undervalued. And for some reason, the market is doing, the meme coin pump this year and all the other kinds of DeFi things, which DeFi I think brings good value. And I'm excited to hear what Vlad has to say about SmartBCH. I know he's been doing a ton of homework on it, and all these huge yield aggregators and different platforms, which I'm interested in. I've played around with some things, and I really wanted to see someone else do it before I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my money there. But that's an exciting thing for Bitcoin Cash. But that's my thoughts about the year, the price movement, and I still think we're going to get some blow off tops. I've been calling for a $3,000 Bitcoin Cash all year. We didn't get that either. We touched 1,600, but we'll see. I think everyone's talking about these elongating cycles. We'll see if that thesis proves true. If not, we'll keep on as business as usual.
So what kind of time frame for that then? Like that's kind of the interesting thing, right? Well, obviously I'm not ready to come out and be like, everybody who wanted the super cycle, you were all wrong. I'm not gonna go hard on that yet. But like, let's say if it got to the start of March, I'd be starting to say, all right, guys, what's happening? And I think definitely if it got into June of next year, then 100K Bitcoin or whatever. If we got to that time, I feel like it would have I mean, it can always, the problem is as soon as I'm like, haha, see it never came to fruition, that'll be the week before it happens.
So what's getting thrown around right now is Benjamin Cowen. You guys probably know him. He has a huge crypto YouTube channel. He's one of these chartist guys. The chart that's been floating around is this cycle that shows day from the bottom of the bear to the top in every cycle. And in every cycle, that correlation is getting longer. And I don't have it right in front of me now, but it does indicate, it does look like, okay, if we do elongate like we did in 2013 and 2017, we'll probably see something around February, March. So after March, if you don't see these 100K Bitcoins or $3,000 to $5,000 Bitcoin Cash, I think I'll say you're right, Jeremy. I think at that time I'll say, you know what, Jeremy was right. I'm going to follow him in the next cycle. but we'll have to see.
All right, good. You got to just make sure, you got to have a prediction and you got to have a time limit, because otherwise, predicting
right?
to infinity, that's no good. Vlad, thoughts on the price? How you've been feeling about it for this whole year?
I mean, I have a little bit different of a standpoint. I'm a little bit more bullish, I think. I think right now it's just like towards the end of the year. I think that it's like Christmas time. People are pulling profits. People aren't buying as much crypto as they were like in the heart of the year. And I think this is just, I think there's a good argument raised that like people are taking like losses to like save on taxes as well. So I think that has a lot to play in. They're selling their crypto and then it's just dropping the market. Retail is down. And I think that there's a lot of manipulation too, because I feel like a lot of big whales can like use that to tank the price even more. So that's kind of my opinion. I've been bullish this entire year. I've been calling for 3 to 5K Bitcoin Cash as well. And I still stand by that. But like we live in a very volatile market to where like people like all the BTC maxis are like 100K Bitcoin by December 31st or January 1st. Like you can't predict that in such a volatile market. So it could be a couple months off or whatever. And like Ryan was saying, pushing towards like February, where I think like I'm not giving up either. And I'm staying to my guns right now. And I think that, we could definitely still see 100K Bitcoin, but I don't, that's not necessarily because I believe in Bitcoin and what it stands for. I think it has a lot less value to like the day-to-day users than Bitcoin Cash does. But I think that just, it has so much recognition that that's the coin that people are going to pump. But I think Bitcoin Cash can follow, and then I think that would rest it nicely somewhere between the 3 to 5K range. And I mean, if it has to be extended a little bit and bleed into next year, I still have belief for this cycle.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I'm still out in the cold with my crazy theories that it's got to take some retail adoption to get everybody excited. But that's definitely fine. I mean, I was wrong. I said it was, I said, okay, we're going to be sort of in a bear market, but we did get back over the all-time high, but it was only just a bit. It wasn't like the huge run, and we have kind of crashed off. But you definitely could take it either way, that it's going to keep like building up and then go on a massive run, or maybe that we just don't have the momentum to get there. All right, so in some more actual real usage, I thought it was interesting to look obviously every week from last year for all through up until the end of 2020 pretty much. BCH was doing about 18 to 20,000 transactions a day, and it had been in that sort of range for like years, since 2018, 2019, 2020. It hadn't really got anywhere. But 2021, starting with the launch of Noise.cash, and generally also I would say renewed kind of vigor and interest in the scene, it is now doing pretty consistently between 60 and 80,000 transactions a day, even after a lot of the Noise.cash transactions were batched up, so that it wasn't just spamming everyone 1 cent, 1 cent, 1 cent all the time. So at 3.5 times growth year on year, I feel like is not too bad, because if you had that exact same growth in the next year, then it would be kind of reaching up. It would be pretty close to the amount of transactions BTC is doing every year. And if we were 1 year sort of away from that, that would be pretty incredible. And I think that's definitely sort of achievable. Who knows? Probably if I was going to estimate, I'd say maybe in a year's time we would be, we would maybe double from here. So I don't know. That seems to me like the realistic case, but I definitely think that the difference between 20K and 70K is massive in terms of the amount of divining like the real user adoption and engagement, as opposed to just, there's probably not 3 times as many people using it because one person can make, a bunch of different transactions, and definitely Noise.cash still has a part to play. But I think this is pretty indicative of good grassroots growth. Any thoughts? Are either of you using more BCH, day to day than you were a year ago?
Yeah, I definitely have been pushing it for my business. I hosted the tournament to encourage people, my vendors and my employees. I'm going to start rolling out some payroll, hopefully by the end of quarter 1 in Bitcoin Cash. But I do think that we, Noise is very interesting. That it's one of the probably the biggest reason for the growth and usage, and it's proven that use case and on how it can be used. And I asked my YouTube channel, I put on my community tab, kind of what questions people maybe want me to bring up during it. And there's a lot of people still wondering what's going on with K.im, or just in general. I feel like Bitcoin Cash is, we get that one killer app that's integrated in Bitcoin Cash and can scale on it and really grow. That would be something that would create another year of that type of growth. We saw what we did with Noise.cash, and I hope Noise continues to improve. And I hope it gets a spot in like the iPhone store. Like there's a lot of things that can still build on itself to increase and enhance the user experience. And everyone's. So I don't know if you guys know anything too, any other insight, but I haven't seen any updates on Kim.com's website for K.im. But that's something that I feel like everyone's been kind of waiting for. Jeremy, have you followed that closely or?
Well, a little bit. I'm going to give Vlad a second to jump in on the transaction, but just quickly on the K.im point, I think that's going to be the January reveal, basically, is that he said that, I think it was January 22, that he said, because he initially said Q4 of 2021, right? And if you go back, rewind back to those old episodes, we said, okay, Kim, you got to deliver. And here we are. Hasn't delivered, right? I don't want to be hating on him too much. Maybe he's going to come out with like a killer, thing in January, but he has said that it will be in January because it was going to be the 10-year anniversary of the raid on his house. So I guess that has maybe special meaning to him, and maybe he's also just kind of buying a little bit more time. Maybe his engineers are telling him like, it's almost there. I mean, that's often how it goes, right? Everything takes longer than expected. So I'm withholding judgment a little bit, but just the same as we were just talking about the price. If it gets into Feb and there's no K.im, it's going to be, all right, Kim, you kind of not living up to the hype there. But yeah, Vlad, thoughts on the transactions and K.im?
Well, I actually need to do a little bit of research on K.im. I'm not too savvy on that, but going back to Noise.cash, I absolutely love it. I think I was introduced to it. Actually, Ryan, you showed me it when you jumped on my channel around like late August, early September-ish. And since then I've been using it, and pretty much anytime I'll tweet something, like I'll pretty much, I'll put something else out on Noise.cash as well. It gives you a little bit, but that's not really what the point is. I think the main point is to increase the transactions on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. And, I try to be on there as much as I can. And I think that's something that would resonate, especially with like the millennials and the younger crowd now, because they like social media, and to be able to get paid for it too, it probably would give it more incentive for them to jump on the network, or the platform rather. Aside from that, I did try to start like a Twitter game. It was called Bitcoin Cash Out. It was pretty much like you have a QR, I put a QR code, you scan it, and then I just raffle it off. Like I'll put it out on Monday, and then I'll raffle it off on Friday. The first week was really successful. It had like, by really successful, it has like $5, but that's coming from little small tips. So that all accumulated. But the next week it died down to like $1. And then after that, it kind of just gave out. So I don't have enough time or like, let's just say time. I don't have enough time to like really pursue it right now, but it's something that I want to keep pushing, because I think that, kind of like a lottery style, like a little fun game, could increase transactions on the chain. Even if it's 5 cents, 10 cents, whatever, it adds up, and then you raffle it off at the end of the week. You're increasing the amount of transactions significantly, but it's going to need a lot more marketing. It's going to need a lot more work. But the last thing is, like, I did list one of my businesses. I own 3 under my LLC. There's pretty much all do the same thing, a moving and junk removal business, and then another moving business, all under one. One of them is listed on the bitcoinmaps.com, so people can see it and see that I accept Bitcoin Cash. So that's one thing, but I haven't had any business from that yet. I think it's going to be a long time before I do. But who knows where it'll go. Maybe, kind of push for that in the future.
Well, that would be a pretty cool indicator, because that's an interesting thing to like have those kind of like lines out in the ocean, you know, and then when you feel the first tug, you're like, wow, that's, you know, pretty significant. Or if, you know, you have nothing, and then one week, you know, suddenly it's like two people contact you and say, hey, do you accept BCH? Or, you know, it tends to be kind of like that. I think those sort of things, it's this, like for me, it's often with running into people who like crypto. You know, you just, for years it was like you met no one, and then suddenly it was like in 1 week it was just suddenly like, oh, somebody else at the bus stop was talking about crypto, or I saw an ad, you know, and then suddenly it all started to come into view.
Yeah, and I know Ryan has he has his own business too, and I see he's actually put like the "We Accept Bitcoin Cash" stickers on his trucks, like on the side of the doors and stuff. So that's really cool. It gets the crowd thinking like, well, what's that? What's Bitcoin Cash?
Well, if I could, you know, give some advice, you know, I ask people if they'll take it for payments. So like I have one contractor that installs like equipment for me, and I talked him into taking Bitcoin Cash for payment. And I remember I gave him, you know, it was like maybe a $600 invoice, and I think Bitcoin Cash was like $600 at that time. He got it, and then the price went way up to 800 in like 2 weeks. He's like, man, this is like amazing. Pay me all the time in this, right? And then it went down to like 450, and he's texting me. He's like, I don't know about this. You know, like people don't like, they don't think like too critically into it. So what's going to happen is as the fundamentals continue to grow, and then their price goes up, then they'll come begging to give you Bitcoin Cash, and they won't see the forest over the trees and all the other fundamental reasons that makes, you know, cryptocurrency superior to the dollar system, or as Jeremy's in the UK, or whatever fiat system that people are using. So unfortunately, people aren't always, you know, forward thinking like that, and the price will tell them what's correct, but the actual fundamentals will be ignored.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think to me, the critical thing, you know, for crypto is just time. Time is the ultimate resource that crypto has, because as long as it keeps ticking over, it gets into someone's head. And like you're saying, they go, okay, he sees it go up and he's excited, and he sees it go down, and now he's, you know, depressed, but then it goes back up a bit, and then it goes back down a bit. And over time, it just sort of modulates to, he understands, okay, it's always like this, and just adapting to a free floating kind of currency system. And then the reinforcing, you know, as maybe somebody else mentions crypto to him, and he can say, oh yeah, I took payment in crypto. And then they also think, wait a second, this is now happening over here in the economy as well too. And as those links kind of form together, at a certain point, it's just going to be like start all snapping into place, and it'll happen really fast, I think.
Little domino effect.
Well, what happens, and Jeremy, you always pointed out like being a big fan of the volatility though, but when the volatility is gone, so will the opportunity that comes with, you know, wealth growth and all that. You can, when Bitcoin Cash has a $50 trillion market cap and it doesn't go up, you know, 2-3x in a year or a few years, you'll talk about all those people who are so smart in 2021 who are going into it, right? So just yeah, it just takes a deeper conversation on, you know, what a free market currency is versus a for lack of a better term, democratized currency through a fiat system, if you want to even use that word. So yeah, I think, you know, us as small business owners, and you know, it really can create a network effect into it. And yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. Hopefully you guys can come to my event next year. I'm actually already working on it, getting a little bit ahead. Yeah. I threw it together a little late. The Bitcoin Cash podcast was a sponsor. I appreciate that, Jeremy. And if you guys have, you know, these kind of meetings of like-minded people, you know, if you guys have any other ideas on how to make it a great event or get involved, man, by all means, we definitely love to make it even better. I had someone complimented me 2 weeks ago. I hadn't seen the vendor in a while. He came in and said how great of an event that was. And we did it at PGA National, and they're used to like hosting like the, you know, PGA professional golf tournaments, the Honda Classic. So our, you know, 150 person event was nothing, and it was just so well professionally done. And like Jeremy was talking about before the podcast, and just presenting Bitcoin Cash well, it really gives I think a professional, good branding towards it.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps like with the crowd to see like how serious we are about Bitcoin Cash, because it's one thing to have a podcast or to have a YouTube channel, but it's a whole different dynamic to bring a group of like-minded people into like one event, and that just goes to show how serious they are about this asset, this cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I think real life rules in the end. I mean, people, you know, for obviously as much time as I spend creating and putting out online content, so do you guys. But the fact of the matter is, and that's something I think that the BTC crowd seriously undervalue, is all this toxicity on Twitter and whatever. It just doesn't translate to real life. When it's just you and someone else and you're just having a conversation, trying to shill them all this crap about, Lightning Network and, you're going to get rich and everything. That doesn't make any sense. But if you're just like, here, look, download a wallet. Look, I just sent you $1 and people, yeah, wow. I see what's really going on. And at the end of the day, those things aren't visible immediately, but over the long run, they kind of really stack up because people trust their own experiences more than whatever random junk they read online, because everybody knows anyone can say anything online. All right, so we got the send in USD, the other stat we check in every year as well. 2021, we already kind of touched on this, but it's up about 2.5x year on year. But if you just extend a little bit back into November of 2020, then it's like more than 20x. It was only in the 100 million sort of per day. And it seems really with Noise.cash. And I also personally attribute a decent amount of it to the fork and to Amaury having left and the eCash team sort of having gone their own direction, that there was suddenly a big surge in interest or sort of reliability in the scene. And that a lot of people, obviously including us on this call, sort of became more excited and got more involved in it as a result. And so I think that's kind of played into things as well too. But yeah, I don't know, do either of you have any thoughts on these?
Yeah, Jeremy, to add to it, I remember I thought BCH was going to be the one that was going to have the developer fund. Roger was much more involved at the time, and I remember he even endorsed it, and I was like, all right, well, I think I'll have to find a new crypto because it's not what I wanted. And even if it was the fork went the other way, that may have been more opportunistic as an investor standpoint. I think eCash has performed very well just because when it forked, it was at such a low evaluation. But yeah, that was it's crazy to think that was such a low time. And actually, at the time, I was so unsure. I put so much more of my Bitcoin Cash in just to Ethereum because I didn't know what Bitcoin Cash was going to do. But it seems like we really have moved out a lot of those big centralizing personalities from these two forks with Amaury and Craig and people like that. So and I think it's good. I think we should touch on Roger. Some people are bringing him up; they want him back. But I think it's good that he's taking a step back. It's allowing more and more parts of the community to decentralize around him, and just in general, how can Bitcoin Cash grow in the next year? I was wondering. I saw the Los Angeles Lakers named their stadium CryptoCoin.com or that kind of crazy. Yeah. I was thinking we should Bitcoin.com to sponsor a stadium or something or we need some loud thing out there. That would be pretty cool. But who knows what the next big move is going to be out there and what kind of players will come in and want to build on Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, Vlad, any thoughts?
So I don't really have much of a technical standpoint from this, but I do think that would definitely help us just keep on pushing the marketing, keep on, like Ryan just mentioned, have something like that. That would be really cool to just see some bigger sponsorships and keep pushing something like that, because it's just going to increase. It's just going to increase the transaction. It's going to keep increasing the price. It's going to keep increasing the value, and overall, it's just going to bring the eyes onto the public and to other bigger investors.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we got the something I wanted to bring up as well here too. So Messari Capital, who I had actually not heard of, but maybe I should have, put out their 2022 crypto theses. So this is from this guy. His name's Ryan Selkis, and his online handle is 2-bit idiot. And to be honest, I've never really been a fan of his. He's been around in Bitcoin for a very, very long time. He was kind of involved in sort of early crypto journalism and stuff back in the day, when there wasn't really much or anything of that, back when CoinDesk was just getting founded, and back before there was all these podcasts and Twitter celebrities and all this stuff. So it turns out, in his own journey through the crypto scene, he's founded this kind of investment hedge fund type of company. And he must be doing great, so I can't knock him too much. Haters gonna hate. I don't want to be one of the haters, but he's put out his crypto thesis, which he does every single year apparently, and he's done 165 pages of crypto analysis. It took him about a month, and I do recommend everybody to check it out because he has a lot of interesting thoughts on NFTs and on the scene developing and all this kind of stuff. But the most interesting thing, obviously pertinent to this podcast, is did he really talk about Bitcoin Cash? And the answer was no. It was only mentioned one time, and the exact quote was, On the other hand, Bitcoin's scarce resource is its simple monetary meme. Its pure play money competitors are less intimidating. Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, Bitcoin Cash, Craig Cash, and the forks of their forks are not much to write home about, right? So this kind of comes with this backdrop of what we were just saying about the price, that it has, been steady or has been surpassed by a lot of other coins. But I was kind of mind blown that it is getting, overlooked to that extent. I mean, that's kind of the opportunity of it, really. But when you look at this set of four, Dogecoin and which has been basically hyped up by Elon, but otherwise doesn't really have all that much, going for it, I wouldn't say. Shiba Inu, which you can barely transfer to anything. It's literally only speculation because it's an ERC20 token. It costs $30 to send it anywhere. Craig Cash, which he didn't even bother to call it Bitcoin SV, he was just already blasting it straight off. And Bitcoin Cash has just found it kind of its way into that group as just coins that he's kind of like, yeah, man, they're not really doing anything, or I don't need to really bother paying attention to. Bit of a joke, which, given how much innovation and like grassroots momentum I'm starting to see in the scene, and also my own personal belief that there's not going to be another split for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and things are really going to take off because most like you were saying, most of those personalities kind of have left. So I just think that that's crazy. And if anybody is worried about the price or about BCH not getting enough attention or something like that, that's all you need to know right there, is this guy who's making these big, analysis of the crypto scene and stuff. Whatever coins he's into, BCH is not even on the radar. So that's something we need to fix with some better marketing. But I also feel like it just goes to show how off the radar and probably how value for money it is right now. And also quickly, just to mention, Jet completely nails it with we had this joke on the podcast of we like the coin being like we like the stock from GME. And whether or not that percolated around the internet or it was just convergent evolution, this guy actually used that same idea in his own header, and he made a joke called copy trading we like the coins, and their financial disclosure had was sort of that we like the coins type idea. So I just thought it was good to see that we're ahead of the meme game here as well too on the podcast. But I don't know, did either of you get a chance to take a look at some of this document, or are you really interested in what the rest of the scene is kind of analyzing?
I didn't look at this. I wasn't even familiar with it before, but I tend not to, look to get into crowded trades. But before, I've had my YouTube channel for like 2 to 3 years, and like for example, like now Tesla is all the rage. Everyone's investing in Tesla, and actually, I followed Mark DeMessel into the trade too. But when Tesla was out of favor, they were going out of business. Like that, everyone was overlooking them. Electric cars are dumb. That's when I got really interested. That's where I saw opportunity. And I do feel the same kind of sentiments now. I do think Bitcoin Cash is completely overlooked, nothing to worry about there. And meanwhile, there's this whole groundswelling of people who love it, and there are efforts to build on it. And maybe this may be a good segue into SmartBCH, because I am dying to know how the people are getting like 9,000% APY on their Bitcoin Cash. So eventually, these things will play out, and by the time Messari Capital, we'll talk about them in the future, Bitcoin Cash will be $3,000 to $5,000 a coin, and they'll be telling everyone to buy it when they didn't tell them to buy it at $400, right? So that's typically the kind of investments that I look for.
Yeah, I personally think to compare Bitcoin Cash to Dogecoin, Shiba, and SV is just, that's just a travesty. Honestly, like for the day-to-day use with Bitcoin Cash, like what Bitcoin was intended to do, Bitcoin Cash is exactly that. Honestly, like you cannot go to and do day-to-day small transactions. You can't go somewhere and buy something with Bitcoin. It's too expensive. And then they tried to implement something like a strike network to where they take custody of your Bitcoin, which is completely the opposite of what decentralization is for. So my standpoint with this is like, it's just to compare Bitcoin Cash to any of those with what it has to offer to the community is just insane. Not to mention that Bitcoin has yet to offer any DeFi options. And like Ryan was mentioning, SmartBCH, which we'll get into. I don't see any DeFi over in the Bitcoin space yet.
Can I hop in here for just a second?
Yeah, get in the mix.
Just to kind of build off that, I think him lumping Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, Bitcoin Cash, and Craig Cash all together it almost speaks more towards the person he is, because truth is, all those coins are on the radar, right? So let's actually compare Dogecoin and Shiba. They're both completely inflationary, if I remember correctly. And then I would like to hear like his reasoning for throwing Bitcoin Cash in here, because like then we go to Craig Cash and he's in courts, playing Satoshi. So it's like it's the odd one out in that group, and those are all still on the radar. So Dogecoin and Shiba, of course, if you're an investor, it's just like GME, right? But the other two, they don't really belong. I think Craig makes sense because he's gotten so much media attention recently. But Bitcoin Cash has been the underdog with not a whole lot of media attention. So why is it still on his radar with these, like, hype coins and media coins, I would say?
Yeah, it's still got a mention, and I mean that's the funniest thing about it. Maybe there's that critical dividing line between 0 mentions, where it's like, oh, we don't even need to bother about it, don't care at all about this, versus the 1 mention. And the sort of the interesting part about it, if you dig into this, is that a lot of his theories and so on and so forth was about the rise of DeFi and like Solana and Avalanche and Ethereum versus its competitors and all that stuff. And it seemed like either he just wasn't aware of SmartBCH, or again is just sort of writing it off and doesn't even consider it in that arena, because probably it isn't, by the amount of total value locked and the amount of action and the different hype towards it. It's certainly not in that league yet. But that said, because it already has, so much default community and default traction, by being involved with BCH, which is a very old crypto, the oldest cryptocurrency, basically, along with the other Bitcoin forks, there's nothing to say that it couldn't just like roar out and get in the mix. So to me, I think that was another critical oversight that I wouldn't be surprised if in 12 months time, when he does his 2023, grand expositions of how everything is going on, there will be, I'm, predicting or guessing there'll be some line in there about, oh, and surprise, BCH just suddenly came out of nowhere with this like SmartBCH or different things like that, which maybe on this podcast, because we love BCH, we're talking about it now, but it takes another 6 months, or it has to be a couple of big wins really come out of it before everybody else sort of starts paying attention.
I think the eventual flippening of Bitcoin BTC with like Ethereum will also be something that allows Bitcoin Cash to rise by so much, because I feel like so much of the crypto market just wants to prop up BTC, because if that goes down, pretty much everything else goes down, right? And then, but if we have a new market leader that is holding higher dominance, there'll be less of a what's the word, an allegiance to do so, to protect BTC, because other cryptos will share more of the market share and not collapse. So I think that's something that's big to look at, and also that would allow Bitcoin Cash to rise more, right? Because I think so much of the BTC narrative and Bitcoin Cash going down just says, we were right, the market is chosen, right? And once BTC is not the greatest store of value in the market, then it's like, well, are you the greatest store of value? And so a lot of these things will fall on themselves. And then I really think, that there's so much interest in DeFi right now, and I think there will be in the coming years, that Bitcoin Cash being sound money and in a DeFi platform will just make it more and more ultimate money.
To add to that too, like especially like this year, like cryptocurrency in general is getting a lot of recognition. And when people are starting to flip from Bitcoin, like a lot of businesses, if you look at bitcoin.com, how many businesses are accepting Bitcoin Cash? Their business owners day to day looking like, okay, how can I start accepting cryptocurrency? And then they're going to look at the best alternatives to fiat currency. And then they're obviously not going to accept Bitcoin. It's too expensive to accept Bitcoin. Most businesses, that are jumping on aren't like, they're pizza shops, they're small businesses, they're taking smaller transactions, and they're going to find out like, okay, Bitcoin Cash is a solid replacement for taking payment. And I think that that's going to, kind of segue into more people accepting Bitcoin Cash and increasing the amount of people investing into it.
Yeah, so I just want to make one quick mention before we get onto. I've got 3 little storylines here for us to track that I think sort of typify what has happened in the year, and things I want to get some more thoughts on. But I just want to quickly mention before we get to that this Messari Capital, he's got his big thesis. You can read his 165 pages, but mine kind of breaks down to this tweet I made a couple of months ago where I said, Bitcoin in 2013, it had Mount Gox, and then it did rebuilding the year after, and then green shoots, and then momentum. And then just as it was starting to gain traction, it hit the block size war in 2017. So I was kind of contrasting that to Bitcoin Cash, that in 2020 was kind of like the Mount Gox year where it had the fork with eCash and everything, it's been disaster. And that in 2021, I feel like this year has been the year of rebuilding and just those small kind of grassroots efforts starting to come together. And so therefore, if you kind of extrapolate the pattern, that 2022 will be the green shoots, and 2023 it'll start to hit momentum, and then maybe that kind of flippening type of vibe could be on the table in 2024 if things keep going to plan. But yeah, maybe that will be completely wrong if Ethereum or any other coin can sort of surge up and knock BTC off the number one space. That is going to be a titanic shift in the market, and how much everyone starts to evaluate the different coins. All right, so yeah, let's talk.
One more thing.
Go on.
Those other coins are not money. I don't know a single person who has paid for something with Doge or Sheeb, especially not Sheeb. Maybe Doge a couple years ago, but especially not Sheeb. And then I know maybe one person who makes the attempt with BSV and still can't live off of it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little honed in on this. I think he showed his hand essentially with this quote.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a classic of the hype narrative versus the reality, kind of what we were talking about before, where there's a whole internet echo chamber of everyone comparing their favorite coins. But like we talked about with Joel last week about all the different coins as to which ones were actually usable. Well, if that was a completely different take on the crypto market, 100% opposite to what is in this grand thesis, was from somebody who lives on crypto every single day, likes completely the opposite coins, So yeah, I've got these 3 storylines which I wanted to talk about, and it seems like let's just skip straight to number 2. We'll come back to number 1 because it seems like SmartBCH is on the agenda. Everyone wants to talk about that. So I really wanted to give the sort of summary to the listeners that might not have been following this story the whole year. So at the start of the year, nobody had heard anything about this at all. That's one thing to remember. It seems like it's been around for quite a while at this point, but really it hasn't been. It was completely off the radar. And then it was in about May, I think, that it was announced as this kind of weird thing which came out as called Mowing Chain, Moeing chain. And everybody was like, what is this? This is really weird. And it was launched with this one kind of dodgy website, and nobody knew what it was sort of about because it had come mostly from the Chinese developers that are involved with Jihan Wu and this guy called Kui Wang, who nobody had ever really heard of. Well, at least I hadn't heard of him up until this point. And it was kind of like, wait, what is this? And then suddenly it just turned into being like, somehow we've developed an awesome version of Ethereum attached to BCH. And so the community sort of slowly figured that out over about a month. And then there was kind of a lot of questions like, is this just vaporware, or is this a lot of hype? It seemed almost too good to be true that it could all be delivered and go great. But then somehow it actually did. And over the next couple of months, they got it, they said, okay, guys, this is coming soon. And then they rolled it out and it was working. And then a couple of tweaks to MetaMask and you're onto it. And it's live. And then people started kind of coming in and starting up the copying over code from the projects that are on Ethereum, like to make decentralized exchanges. And they started doing token projects with like Cash Cats. And now there's tons of other ones. And then some NFTs started happening with these poolside puffers that Jet's a big fan of. And like these things, they just started all kind of popping up, right? It's been this secret little revolution. And there's now actually several bridges. There was CoinFlex are maintaining the main bridge, but there are other companies as well that let you flip your BCH across. And it is promised that in next year, after the May protocol update, that we will get a decentralized bridge, so that you can you don't need to trust CoinFlex, and you can move the coins one way and the other way in a decentralized way, where nobody can stop you or steal your coins, or and all the locking and burning of the coins will be managed automatically. So if that happens, it might just unlock a tidal wave of, obviously, if you're a very big player, you don't necessarily want to be putting tons of capital while it's still kind of at risk of that centralized bridge. So yeah, I obviously I'm going to get thoughts from the two of you on how this journey has been, and I've put on the slides here. I was going to compare to how many total value locked is a really big metric for DeFi. I'll just check what the Ethereum is currently at, but it's about 35 million right now for SmartBCH, which is not trivial, but it's also not massive compared to these other players like Solana or like Avalanche or whatever other, Ethereum, obviously. And so from a BCH point of view, it sounds awesome. Could this be like the ETH 2.0 arriving somehow suddenly via some miracle on BCH? Or is it just going to have to slowly work its way into the mix with those competitors, and kind of how does it get an edge, right? So yeah, any thoughts of the, maybe Vlad can start this off, seeing as he's been reading up on SmartBCH.
Yeah, so I mean, I really just been getting into it like the last literally week and a half really that I've been like studying SmartBCH and how to get into it. And really the most difficult part is just how to bridge it. Now, I've had people like respond to my tweets and be like, oh, I lost some BCH trying to bridge it. And I'm not trying to put any like bad word to prompt.cash, but that was the platform that they brought up. Now I'm sure it's just so early in the game. They just need to like fix all these tweaks right now. And I know that's probably just a developmental issue, but I've been using hop.cash. All that is simply you just have your wallet off your phone, whatever you're storing your Bitcoin Cash. And then you go on hop.cash off your computer, provides a QR code. All you do is you scan it, and then it just tells you, okay, the transaction went through, and then it waits a little bit. Like when you're transferring like $10, it goes by almost instantly, just like regular Bitcoin Cash would if I was to use like bitcoin.com to another person's bitcoin.com wallet. But when you're starting to get into like the bigger numbers, like 2 Bitcoin Cash, it'll be like 10 minutes. And that's where the first time I transferred over to Bitcoin Cash, I was a little scared. I got a little worried. I was like, oh boy, what's going to happen? But lo and behold, it went through. And then I brought it onto the SmartBCH chain. And then you get access to all these awesome exchanges like MissSwap. And then there is this new one that's called Daiquiri. And I'm not going to give my recommendation on it because it's so new. And I can't definitely tell you. I would say approach with caution, but it's something to look into. So MissSwap definitely has been around longer. It's a lot of people have more trust in it. So I've put in a decent amount, probably about like 3 Bitcoin Cash in there, and I'm farming it right now at this moment. And you can get some APRs. You can get as low as 80%, which 80% is still amazing, but 80% is like the low end. Some of the farms that you can put it onto, you can earn 450% on MissSwap. But then you get into the crazy numbers when you're on Daiquiri, which is a newer platform. So they're just looking to get people on, and then these percentages are going down. But when they first started to try to swing people onto their platform, you were seeing APYs of like 40,000%, and people were yielding at 40,000%. You can harvest your yield at any time. So it's not like you have to wait X amount of days, hours, whatever. People were harvesting like 40,000%, and even in a day's time, that's so much. But as people got like the word of SmartBCH and they heard of Daiquiri, they starting to risk it too. Start off with minimal amounts because the prices the percentages started dropping down like slower and slower and slower. And now we're at like 1,800 is probably like the highest percent per year, but that's still a phenomenal return. And as people are getting more trust for Daiquiri, which again, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. I'm not going to give you my recommendation, but it's kind of, it's staying still right now. I'm not seeing too many signs like that. It's like, going to be a rug pull, but who knows what's to say, but these are crazy numbers. And it's just, you can start making a lot of passive income with these exchanges.
Ryan, what do you think? Smart BCH. Have you been
Yeah,
playing around with that?
I think the whole thing is fascinating that we're rewriting, the financial tools that operate an economic system, right? So these platforms and how they all operate. Like, for example, I was driving home the other night and I had some cash on me and like more cash than I like to carry. And I stopped at a bank and my son was like asking me what I'm doing. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know why this building exists because he knows about Bitcoin Cash. I was like, with Bitcoin Cash, I can just all from my phone and I can hold hard money on my phone. And in regards to Smart BCH, I think everyone should be cautiously optimistic about what kind of APRs you go into. And there will be rug pulls. There's going to be wild west things that occur. But this is, everyone's looking for yield. Everyone knows that's how the banking system operates, right? They take your capital and they monetize it. In decentralized platforms, why can't we partake in that? And that's going to happen. And I've been educating myself. I really haven't jumped too much into it, but I am fascinated by it. And I did have a question I put on my community tab. Someone asked about the amount of Bitcoin Cash burned on the Smart BCH platform. And I'm curious if anyone can kind of speak to that. So how does it burn? Talk about how many BCH there would be in 5 years when 2 BCHs burn every day through Smart BCH. So this helps, keeping, controlling the price as long as, as well as with like halving cycles and making it more of a scarce resource. Can anyone explain to me how and why it burns through Smart BCH?
Yeah, so I think, okay, so I think there's been actually quite a lot of different sort of misconceptions and angles about this actually. So it's quite good to get a chance to sort of explain it all from start to finish. So I think sort of the key starting point is basically the history, right? Which is that cryptocurrency started with this idea of creating a fixed supply amount of money. And so then Satoshi did that. And before that, you had inflationary currencies or you had gold, which even then is still inflationary because you can always sort of mine sort of slightly more of it. And so these kind of economic ideas about deflationary currencies, which it was very easy for economists to sort of put off and say that's never going to work or whatever, there was no counterexample of, but what about this? It's actually working right here. So that was easy to dismiss. But then with Bitcoin, you created a fixed supply money, which would be deflationary naturally, because obviously everybody would, mine up to the coin limit. And then once you have that certain amount of coins, provided the system is still going without any inflation coming into the system, that it will become deflationary just because people will lose coins naturally. And Satoshi even said that. Somebody asked Satoshi, isn't this going to be a problem? Like if we've only got 21 million coins and then somebody loses a few here and there, down the back of the couch, then eventually you're running out of coins. And Satoshi said, no, that's not going to be a problem, because when you losing coins, that's essentially just like burning them, destroying them. And in that way, because of the market supply and demand, that essentially redistributes the value of your BCH proportionally to, or the Bitcoin, to everyone else in the system. So it's kind of just like charity. So there was not any problem, Bitcoin was sort of designed in a certain way so that, with people, like if they died and they didn't manage to pass on their Bitcoin, or if they lost them, or if they got hacked, or if they put them in some, smart contract or something that didn't work out, like that's no problem for the rest of the system. It can just carry on normally. So that was the premise. And then what has since changed that has been the rise of DeFi in the sort of 2018, 2019, as that has started come onto the scene. As far as I know, the first big, proof of this concept of deliberately burning coins, not accidentally burning coins like by losing them or whatever, was in Binance Smart Chain. So they had the idea, CZ, who is the guy who runs the Binance chain, he had this idea of what if we issue a token, which is kind of like it's basically like a stock in our exchange, and people will have to pay using that coin, that stock, for transaction fees on the exchange. So therefore, the more the exchange is used, the more people will have to spend this coin. And therefore there's, intrinsic demand for it. and it doesn't have to compete with other coins, to be used as money day to day, right? So he said that, and then because then that's a win-win for him, because then if people are obviously spending that coin, burning it on exchange, then they're using the exchange, but also he has the one who's made the initial supply of it. So if people rush into the market to speculate and they all buy up the Binance coins, that pumps the price of the Binance tokens, which is a great marketing thing for him. And also B, it makes his stash more valuable that he can sell on the free market. And therefore it's kind of like having an ICO. It's kind of like a angel seed round of investment funds that has been crowdfunded, kind of like a really weird version of Kickstarter. So you have those two things at play. But because he started this system, and then it worked basically, which was that people paying the fees in that coin pumped the price of the token, which brought more people in this kind of virtuous cycle. And now a Binance Smart Chain coin is like $500. And so this idea of deliberately burning coins in order to pump your price and get traction sort of started to catch on to other coins. So then Ethereum tried to get in on it with their EIP 1559 and being really excited about burning coins to pump their price, which they said was going to lower fees, but of course in the end it didn't. And what they don't really understand about it is that the important part of the burn is not the fact that the coins are gone and the value redistributes to everyone. That's generally fine. Everyone's happy to have their coins go up in value. The crux of the matter is who is the ones whose coins are being burned, because they're essentially, paying that price, right? So in the Binance system, it was the people who were trading on the Binance exchange, which is fine because it was all done in tiny little increments, and the people, have exchange fees. So they don't really notice whether it's paid in fiat or it's paid in Binance coins. They couldn't really care less. But in the Ethereum case, they were getting a bit lost, and I think they still are, because what they don't understand is the people burning all those Ethereums is their own community. So what does that mean? It just means even if they feel like, well, my ETH prices are going up, but the fact is, then if they want to transfer their ETH, it's their coins that are getting burned. So actually what they're doing is they're disincentivizing people to use Ethereum, and they're just going to go on to other chains. Now, that wasn't a problem for Binance, because instead of the burning was already built into the fees that they already had to pay to trade on the exchange. Like, it was a proven product that people already wanted to use. So when it comes to SmartBCH, what happened was that the developers of that were looking to start an EVM chain, and they saw, okay, Ethereum is doing this, Binance Smart Chain is doing this, other chains are doing this, and they thought, well, this is a proven good idea in the marketplace. So they essentially tried to replicate the Binance Smart Chain model, which is that when you go transfer your coins onto SmartBCH, you have to pay a transfer fee just like you do on the main chain, and it's very, very low, like 1 or 2 cents. But of that 1 or 2 cents, it splits down into 2 portions. So one portion is like the mining reward that goes to the validators on SmartBCH, which is essentially the BCH miners. So in that way, the system is economically secured. The users using the network pays for the network infrastructure. So that's good. And then they could have just left it at that and been, that's happy. But for some reason, I don't know, you'd have to ask the SmartBCH devs. They thought, you know what, let's mix in a little bit of spice here as well too. And so they added another small little component, which is the fee burn, so that the SmartBCH users, the people who are transferring around their money, to do all this farming and use all these apps and so on, are essentially also paying out dividends to all the other SmartBCH holders and to the main chain holders as well too, because their value of their BCH, even if they just do nothing, is going to go up, because there will be slightly small amounts of BCH burned over time. And while there's been some sort of consternation, because people say, oh, well, what are we going to, we're going to run out of coins if we just burn them all. But that's not really going to happen, because there's two answers to that. So the first point is that you can lose any amount of coins and it doesn't matter in one sense, right? The whole world economy, if everybody in the world was using Bitcoin Cash, could run on one single BCH. It could run on 0.0001 BCH. And the way it can do that is because it's infinitely divisible, right? So at the moment, one BCH is 100 million Satoshis, but if we needed to add another, 10 decimal places, we could do it, and everybody could just trade in smaller and smaller and smaller amounts. So the actual amount of BCH is irrelevant, because any amount can be distributed around to enough people, and people think, oh, well, that's like raising the supply, but it isn't, because it's like having a pizza, and if you cut it into smaller pieces, then you can hand it out to more people, but it doesn't mean there's no extra pizza created, right? You've just made it into smaller amounts. And so when they added all those decimal places, it just means everybody would suddenly have, all those extra decimal places of BCH. So everybody still has the exact same ratio of the supply as they did before. So it's not changing 20, there still will be 21 million BCH. It'll just be a lot easier to send around. So in one hand, it doesn't matter how much BCH you burn, because however much is left is enough. And that's already proven by the fact that there's like 18 million in circulation today, but actually there's only about 13 million, because there was 1 million that Satoshi never used, and there's 4 or 5 million that have been lost and have never moved and never will move, and nobody cares, right? Nobody's like, oh, what about these? Nobody cares. It's fine. And then the other aspect to that is that the burn is self-stabilizing because the price. So when you burn a small amount of BCH, it increases the supply, increases the price by reducing the supply, right? So the more BCH is burned, like let's say right now there's 1 BCH burned per day, that will eventually pump the price. So let's say the price of BCH goes from $500 to $1,000, and that means that the fees burned will halve in BCH terms. They will be the same in fiat terms, but they will halve in fiat terms, if you see what I'm saying, right? So as the burn continues, the supply decreases and the price goes up, and as a result, the amount of fiat value burned in BCH can be consistent or increasing, but at the same time, the amount of in BCH terms can be stable or decreasing, because the coins themselves are getting more valuable. So like, let's say if this became a really big deal and SmartBCH gets tons of traction, it's not like we're going to go from burning 2 coins a day to 2,000 coins a day to 200,000 coins a day. That's not going to happen, because if there was that much demand and that many people burning coins, obviously people are finding these apps useful, and everybody will be flooding into BCH. And at that point, the price will go to the moon, and the fees will still be small amounts of fiat, but they will all add up to a very, fractional or decreasing amount of BCH. So that was a huge spiel, but hopefully all of that makes sense. Is there, any questions about any of that?
So Vlad, right now, how are the fees on SmartBCH?
Let me see right now. Oh, I mean, just regular transaction fees right now, they're fractions of a penny. I believe like the biggest one I saw was like 3 cents in fiat, but I mean, they're way lower. That's for like bigger transactions or for like more valuable smart contracts that you're trying to execute. The general one is like, I want to say like 0.000. It's like 3 or 4 decimal spots to the right. So they're very, very small. It's very affordable. You're pretty much transferring the exact value that you're trading for. And it's not like Ethereum. Like people are trying to participate in DeFi and they're getting killed or they can't even get killed on the Ethereum chain because they can't afford to get killed on the Ethereum chain. So SmartBCH is just so the transactions are they're very, very small, very, very small.
I know Mark Lamb with CoinFlex, part of his thesis around building around Bitcoin Cash is that the next billion users of cryptocurrency will be fee sensitive. Right now the crypto market has grown, Ethereum has grown, Bitcoin's grown with high fees, but I don't think this trend is likely to continue. And again, of course, that was a big reason for the block size war. But again, I do agree with that thesis. I mean, obviously, if you're in Bitcoin Cash, you probably agree that the next billion users are going to care about fees.
Of course. I mean, even like going towards something like NFTs, which SmartBCH is implementing. I mean, you can't own NFTs affordably. Like if you're just a day-to-day small investor, you can't buy an NFT. You can't afford it sometimes because of the fees. Say it's like $100 NFT that has huge value and it's gonna, it has the potential of skyrocketing, but the Ethereum fees are like 300, 400, 500. Sometimes I've seen them go up thousands of dollars. You can't afford that. On SmartBCH, I bought 4 yield producing NFTs that are making me passive income right now, and I paid fractions of a penny for them each. So that's something to consider.
Yeah, and to give the listeners like some context, so I did look this up just before. So yeah, the total amount of BCH, total value locked on the chain, which is just one metric for the size of the ecosystem, is $37 million. Now, if we compare that to Ethereum, it's 149 billion US dollars locked on Ethereum. So what that means is that essentially BCH would be about a 4,000x growth in the amount of like capital and value flooding into the system before it was matching up to Ethereum in terms of the amount of community interest and the amount of protocols and different value that's going on and so on and so forth, right? So right now BCH is an absolute tiny little speck in the pond of smart chains. But because of the way that open source works, which is that the developers have built SmartBCH using a lot of they recoded everything from scratch to match the same specs in the base layer. But once they did that, porting over all the apps and the wallets and so on and so forth is just tweaking a few lines of code. So it's actually not that unrealistic that with just a little bit of time, BCH can probably not catch up the full 4,000x on SmartBCH, in 1 year or something. That's probably not likely to happen, but it can it doesn't need to retread those same things over and over and over again. It's like starting the 100-meter race, from the 95th meter, basically, because so much of the infrastructure is already there, and because it's cryptocurrency, it's all open source. So what's missing is mostly not the development or relearning those same lessons. Instead, what's missing is just the liquidity and the consumer interest to kind of flood into the coin, and that's going to be a self-perpetuating, virtuous cycle as well too.
Yeah, they definitely need more liquidity. They definitely need more to invest in some of the projects too, just to brush up. I'm not going to go into like the details of all the projects, but I've been starting to research like some of them, and there's a lot of good projects on the SmartBCH chain. One that I'm going to leave you guys with is Celery. It's like an annuity that they're launching, like the first cryptocurrency annuity that they're launching on the SmartBCH chain. I mean, there's some valuable projects there that just need funding, and ultimately, hopefully we get there.
To kind of like loop back to the fee burning thing, I don't know if I'm remembering everything correctly, but I believe Jikh had a team behind the Omni protocol back in like 2018 in Wormhole. And that was supposed to be a token layer built on top of Bitcoin Cash that seemed to be rejected by the community over time. But I don't know if he took inspiration from that, but if I remember correctly, in order to get a token on the Omni protocol, you had to burn your Bitcoin Cash for it. So that might be part of the reason why they have divvied this portion of the overall fees into burning Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, and I think I wasn't following it at all as closely at that time, but I think there was like sort of other factors at play, right? The community was in a lot of consternation about it. And I think that was before it had been proven that fee burning, was a workable solution on other chains anywhere near as strongly. As far as I know, like that Wormhole, I don't know the details, but it might be that you could burn them, and it was just burning them to get them onto the chain. And then maybe you weren't expected to be able to bring them back. Whereas the SmartBCH, you can flip some of your coins over and then obviously a portion of it gets burned, but the main SmartBCH you still have, and you can flip it back, and maybe also just the community at that time had not thought through or was not as educated about everything I explained with cutting the pizza into smaller slices, and the fact that is actually a workable system, because people just don't like burning things. It sounds like wasting resources, right? It's very unintuitive to think about throwing away coins, even though they're literally just virtual numbers on a computer, right? It's not really a problem.
I mean, just on a high level, like, what an exciting time to be alive, right? Like our parents and grandparents just lived through fiat systems and whatever, they got rid of the gold standard and like everything was getting taken away. Now our generation gets to like rework all this and create second layer chains and yield farming and all this, like, and it's just so fascinating, the better kind of financial products that we will have in our lifetime and our children will have, all due to this free market experiments, you know?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see exactly how everything plays out. But I suppose my prediction for 2022 is like gigantic. Well, okay. Very substantial growth on SmartBCH. I think, you know, like I said, starting from it's still sort of quite young. It's still like probably less than 6 months old, which is pretty crazy compared to Ethereum. Has been around, you know, for 6 years, and even a lot of those other chains, even if they've been around for like Avalanche, for instance, it's been around a bit over a year at this point. That's still twice as long as SmartBCH, and it had tons of you know, marketing money and stuff behind it, which SmartBCH hasn't had, right? So I don't know.
Is centralized.
Yeah. So so I don't know. Does anybody want to take a stab? We can look back in 1 year. Total value locked on SmartBCH. So the spectrum is 35 million now on SmartBCH, up to 149 billion on Ethereum. Or I guess you can go bigger if you think in 1 year SmartBCH could overtake. That's a massive range. Where are we looking? I'm going to take a second and think where am I going to pick?
Well, I think something that would play into that is if proof of stake ends up working out for Ethereum, right? Because then they could hold its market share. I would say if fundamentals don't change for Ethereum, that would really open up room for other market players like SmartBCH. So, you know, and a lot of it I think does play into, Jeremy, what happens with the crypto market. Like if we go into a bear market and everything collapses by 80%, you're going to see a lot of people just exit, right? The fair weather investors, right? But I think me and you will still be there. So it's hard to, there's other variables that play there, but I'm going with an elongating cycle. That's my thesis. And so I do think in the first couple quarters, you'll see a lot of more exponential growth on SmartBCH. And just given the hype around, you know, DeFi platforms and NFTs and all that. So I don't think that's done yet.
We need a number, Ryan.
Yeah, pick a number.
So 35 million locked. 35 million locked by the end of 2022.
Yeah, December this time when we do this show next year. What's the number?
I would say a modest 5x. I could say 170, 180 million. I think that's a modest number in terms of it's still so new.
Yeah. All right, Vlad. Any thoughts?
I mean, if people keep onboarding and it keeps going the way it is, and there's not I hope there's no more, like, there's no rugs that happen. I don't want a lot of people to lose like their credibility this early in SmartBCH, but I think a 5, even a 10x is definitely possible. But it has to keep performing and keep the investors excited.
All right, so maybe even a 10. So you're going about 370 million then on the upper.
That's really bullish and can consider, and hoping nothing crashes. And let's just think that like crypto is going to keep going throughout 2022 without any stops. But I mean, likely we will see declines in the entire crypto market. Probably around like mid next year. So I mean, that's on the really bull scale, the 10x. But I'd say 5x is be more reasonable.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna hold you to it. Don't worry, it's all just speculation. But yeah, I mean, I was sort of thinking, I was sort of like, 1 billion sounds nice. That would be a huge move, right? But you've seen, like, let's see for these other coins which have like come up, out of nowhere. So Avalanche has 11 billion. Let's have a look here. What Solana has. Also about 11 billion, right? So even if we got, these things can just sort of, so Solana went from 700 million in June up to 11 billion. Like, these numbers are just staggering once something really takes hold, once it really captures the public's imagination. But that's crazy. Like, Solana was 800 million or even 200 million in March. And so SmartBCH, yeah, 5 or 6x puts it at the starting point for Solana, which is absolutely like mind-boggling to think. So okay, maybe I was shooting a bit high there with 1 billion. You know what? Fuck it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't happen. We have a terrible crypto year. So let's say if it gets up over 1 billion by this time next year, it has a mad year, then I'm gonna be looking sick. And if it doesn't, I'll just say, look, I said it was a moonshot. But
I mean, even if it, oh, sorry, go ahead. It looks like
no. Jet, you gonna take a stab here? What number are you thinking?
I think my prediction is dependent on the Shopgate bridge. I would say in the next year, 700 million locked. I would say, assuming that the Shopgate bridge comes, the year after that, probably 3 billion. That's that, or way higher.
And the Shopgate is the decentralized bridge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that launching will make people so excited.
Yeah, it'll bring a lot of ease to people. I mean, like, people probably worrying right now, like, will their BCH get lost in the bridge? And that's huge. That's enormous.
Yeah, and I think there's still not a lot of sort of proof of concept for that, in the sense that even though it seems actually at this stage fairly solid that this is going to happen, right? Because the SmartBCH team have delivered pretty much exactly on what they've said so far. They've done a amazing job, and every report is, yeah, we just need to get the May upgrade over the line, which is locked in for May, and that's on testnet, and that's coming through. So with those things, it's not inconceivable that by the end of June or July we should see it, and then there could be a big like flooding of capital, and that could really like kickstart the kind of cycle. So yeah, I guess it will depend on that. But the point is that the other coins aren't in this same situation, like Ethereum or Solana or whatever. They don't have this kind of weird two-way peg bridge. And of course, BTC hasn't done it. BSV hasn't done it. So we are in sort of uncharted territory, which I guess is a good thing, because if BCH can sort of jump out into the lead, putting up these kind of results, once people start taking notice, they're really going to take notice. Yeah. All right, cool. So that's a bit of SmartBCH hype for everyone. Those would be interesting numbers to look back on. I think I'm either going to look like a complete idiot when it's like it's like 100 million and I said 1 billion, or I'm going to look like a genius when it's when it's like 2 billion and everybody else is going in the 150 million. So go big or go home.
I hope I look like the idiot.
I think we'll all be very happy. We'll all be very happy under those scenarios. Okay, cool. So I wanted to touch on another storyline from this year that I think has been playing out over the year, and that is Elon Musk and his journey in crypto. So I probably should have gone back and checked the exact dates a little bit more, but he's had a big year when it comes to crypto. He's just had a big year overall, but he sort of towards the start of the year, he was kind of getting in the mix. I think it was like episode 3 of this podcast. So it must have been in February that it was Elon Musk was accepting crypto, or he kind of came out of left field. Like the crypto ecosystem was just sort of ticking along. And then he just suddenly came out and said, oh, we bought a bunch of Bitcoin and we're going to be, getting involved with that. And it caught everybody off guard, because crypto had been developing its own little ecosystem of influencers and, people who had been in the scene, and different investors were slowly coming in and things like that. But Elon was just a bigger fish, especially since he's massive on Twitter, and a lot of the crypto debate, crypto Twitter is this kind of hub of community discussion. So when he came in, he just completely blocked out the sun of everybody else who was already sort of an influencer in the space, and suddenly had an enormous following and reach. And so he kind of was sort of teasing it at Dogecoin for a while as being like, I like Dogecoin. And there was these theories about he's bought up this huge billions of dollars in this one central wallet, and he's sending these cryptic messages. And he sort of never really confirmed or denied that until later on. He did say, yeah, I have some Dogecoin, but he never said if he had like a massive stash or he just had a little bit. And then we were watching as he sort of slowly started to figure out the crypto ecosystem a bit himself, because it seems like at the time I said, and I think it sort of held up pretty well, that it seemed like he had just got some advice maybe from his engineers or whatever who were big BTC fans, and they told him, look, we should definitely do this. And he said, yeah, sure. And he's known for just trusting his team. If they have a good idea and he can see, okay, there's something here, he'll just say, all right, great, whatever you think, just run with it. But then only if it turns into a disaster, he'll kind of dig into the details and figure it out himself. So Tesla had some very strange rollout where they were accepting BTC, but they had some kind of strange policies around refunds and stuff. And they had some very strange shenanigans with their website as well, too, where their FAQ sort of said, we accept Bitcoin. And then it had some explanation about we don't accept Bitcoin forks, or if you send us Bitcoin Cash, it won't get to us. But then that was sort of taken away. They sort of took that off. And there was a lot of sort of back and forth there. And so then it all came to a head kind of a couple of months later, where it seemed like it didn't go that well, because then Tesla stopped accepting Bitcoin entirely, which caught everybody off guard just as much as beginning to accept it, then suddenly stopping for supposedly environmental concerns, which also seemed pretty ridiculous, because he's, an energy pioneer with batteries and everything. How would he suddenly be surprised that Bitcoin was using energy? That didn't make any sense. And then he was just kind of drifted off the crypto radar, and he's made a bit of a comeback in the last part of 2021, and has just recently announced that I don't know whether he was joking or if it's totally confirmed, but that he's thinking of accepting Doge for merchandise, not for actual cars, but just for merchandise at Tesla to see that happen. And he has in the past kind of talked about these like big block scaling and sort of saying on-chain scaling is the way to go. And he likes that Dogecoin is doing that. So I predicted back then that BCH would be the next coin he would take, plus maybe Doge. And I guess I'm wrong, because it seems BCH is still verboten and he's not going to actually say it, even as he constantly talks about big block scaling. But maybe Doge is going to sneak in there. And obviously he also happened to be Time Person of the Year as well too. So yeah, he's had a lot going on. But in retrospect, Elon's entry into crypto, any thoughts?
Yeah, I've been a huge Elon fan for many years. I mentioned I own Tesla stock. I drive a Tesla. I followed Elon's career just as an aspiring entrepreneur, founding PayPal. And early back in like 2017, around that time, I was following Elon, and he was not a fan of crypto. He said things like, it seems something really convenient for criminals to use and things like that. Some people accused him of being Satoshi, and he, constantly said like, I'm not really into it. And he would troll on Twitter, Dogecoin, just kind of trolling crypto people, right? And then, it feels like, yeah, he did get caught up in the bull market getting going, and people around him probably influenced him. And then it seems like by the time like he really wrapped his head around it, he'd been pushing Doge and now was in Bitcoin. And then it felt like he was attracted to Bitcoin Cash. He even had some dialogue with Kim.com saying he agreed that that Bitcoin Cash was superior in fees and in scaling on chain. He's repeated that several times. So I feel like he's kind of backed himself into a corner where he wants to be a big blocker. And I feel like if he was around in 2017, he would have been a B casher. And actually, I shouldn't say that, because if he was around 2017, his popularity would have allowed the big blockers to hold the BTC ticker. I really believe that. So I think these fundamentals will continue to play out. I think at some point, I wonder what would sway him, or what kind of personalities would make it more attractive, or he'll just have to wait until the Bitcoin Cash market continues to grow.
Vlad, any thoughts? Elon?
I don't have like the biggest opinion for it, but I do like the fact that a big name like him is into crypto. But he kind of, with his Twitter, people don't really take him that seriously sometimes. So at this point, he doesn't really have that much influence that he did before. I think he still does. I think if Tesla was to announce like accepting Bitcoin again or some sort of crypto, that would still sway the markets. But I think that his like personal, like just tweets like don't really have that much effect on anyone, as we can see with him like tweeting recently about the merchandise. And it brought it up a little, but it's not going to skyrocket the price of anything anymore. So it's really going to be more like action that sways anything, and we'll see what happens with what he chooses to accept. But I think he'd be right to accept Bitcoin Cash.
But adding to that, Elon was he's just been generally talking about free market economics so eloquently, and talking about how the state is, what's the wording he would use? The state is essentially a large corporation in the limit, right? Like he's using a lot of this anarchical, cypherpunk, libertarian type of like I tweeted and I got a lot of likes on it. Like him and Roger Ver are more alike than people would know. Like that would be an awesome podcast to hear people like that speak. So I really appreciated his way of viewing that. And even recently, people have asked him about what he thinks about the infrastructure bill that's going to put in all these charging stations for electric cars all around the country. And he said it's a bad thing, right? Like it's corporatism. Like Tesla went out there and they funded their electric charging network. Why does the taxpayer have to go out there and pay for Ford, $1 billion company, and give them chargers everywhere when Elon used venture capital and things he had to do? So just as a free market personality, now endorsing free market money is really cool. And it sounds like he's a big blocker, but I don't know if there's pressure. I know he's friends with Saylor and Dorsey and people like that to go out and speak. I don't think Musk is one to want to mince words. I think eventually something like that would happen. But I like Musk. I think people like him make living in a world more exciting, that we can live amongst the stars one day and have a cleaner planet. He's a very aspiring person to me.
I don't want to.
Go on.
I don't want to just make it, about Elon, but it's interesting to hear you say like, oh, he's this free market personality, when the most recent news that I've seen from him is that he's suing detractors in China, right? So I'm curious what your thoughts might be there, if there might be some outside influence, because that seems like a very grifting move to me.
What is he suing?
Someone for just criticizing Tesla's business practices in China, like not like, yeah. I'll send you the link after.
I don't think he's perfect by any means. He has taken subsidies. He has taken loans. I know I got a $7,500 tax credit when I bought my Tesla. And I mean, for sure, is he a purist and is he someone like a real free market anarchical person? Probably not, but at least someone with that amount of influence is talking about free market principles. By no means do I think is he probably perfect, but just someone as influential as him, making them criticize their view of the government, I think is generally good.
Well, I think that's interesting. And maybe that I didn't really plan this to be in the story, but it seemed like it is, that maybe that's one big thing that's come out of 2021 is more of these crypto ideas starting to get into the vogue, right? And not sort of tangentially to the actual cryptocurrency itself. Obviously, Jack Dorsey was tweeting about Murray Rothbard a little while ago. And now Elon, has been coming out with this stuff that maybe 5 years ago he wouldn't have said anything like that. Maybe he wasn't thinking it himself. But as crypto has become a force in the world, it's sort of a virtuous feedback loop where it's elevated a lot of people who were into that to positions of prominence to spread around their ideas more prominently and make it seem more acceptable and also more realistic, because it's like, look, they've been saying this the whole time and it's working. There's nothing as convincing as some real actual proof that your ideas are succeeding. And money talks, as they say, right? There's been a lot of money flooding into crypto, so that's done a lot for the cause. And then at the same time, that's also then drawing in other people who might have been somewhat sympathetic to that, or they hadn't really thought of things that way or whatever, but then they could see these specific examples and suddenly it's it's clicking in their mind that, okay, wow, this is actually awesome, and then giving them exposure to more of those political ideas and different things kind of as a result. So maybe Elon is emblematic of that, but I think we are just seeing that happen sort of around the world as a greater sort of crypto awakening, and obviously it comes kind of quite well timed in the context of all the lockdowns and stuff that we've had, that there is also that questioning of government narratives going on at the same time too. Vlad, any final thoughts, or we'll move on?
I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't really have like the biggest opinion of Elon, but you know, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, I mean, I just hopefully he makes the right decisions in 2022 and picks Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, well, that's it. We'll see. Maybe we'll be able to check in on one time. Did he start accepting Bitcoin Cash? Did he at least say it? Far out. It's beyond belief to me that he's been preaching the gospel of big blocks, you know, to empty air and causing a lot of consternation with the BTC side, and yet he still hasn't got, just like, all he would have to say is, you know, Bitcoin Cash is actually kind of killing it. Like that would just be titanic waves through the, you know, cognitive dissonance.
At least he argued with Peter McCormick. At least we have that.
Yeah. Well, he's at a certain point, you know, I think he's good. Obviously, to me, it just, the proof is in the pudding, really. He put in Bitcoin, or he tried to, or, you know, he let someone do it at Tesla, and it just didn't really work. Like, don't give me all this environmental crap. Otherwise, if it had gone great, he would be preaching it from the high heavens. Look at our Bitcoin sales and stuff, but it hasn't happened.
I think he's put himself into a little bit of a securities pressure from pumping Doge so much, like where it's like he can't almost move, or else he's looking at massive lawsuits, right? Like he says, I do pump, but I don't dump. Now, if he just goes out shilling every coin, he turns into John McAfee of 2017, and we know how that ended for him, right? So I think he is calculated in why he's doing what he's doing, and I wouldn't be surprised next year if he at least mentioned it, right? Like Mark Cuban recently mentioned about Bitcoin Cash adoption in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's definitely making inroads. Right. So let's then check in on final little third storyline of the year that I wanted to talk about, which is kind of a compliment to, you know, the other two, that the Elon story is kind of looking outward, what was going on in the whole crypto space. And we talked about the Messari Capital sort of story. And then SmartBCH is a specific example within the BCH community, and it's been a big part of it. But the third one is just that Bitcoin Cash has had a year of no drama. There was no chain split. There wasn't the devs causing a lot of grief, except for a small wobble with BCH Unlimited saying, oh, we're going to maybe launch a testnet coin. But I think that from my perspective, there's just been grassroots growth in content creators, like we've talked about. And I think it also just comes to the fact that the community has stopped being so insecure, maybe is a good word for it, that probably in the past I wasn't as involved. And part of the reason I wasn't involved because there was too much toxicity, too much arguing, too much, you know, what about the past and stuff, and not enough looking to the future. And just it's not really about whether BCH is better or worse than another coin. You know, you can talk until you're blue in the face. You kind of got to prove it. You got to put up results. Look, people are using the network to transact. Look, we do have a vibrant ecosystem. Look, people are interested. Look, there is, you know, cool conversations happening, and we are being a thought leader and stuff. And even if the broader market hasn't clued into that this year, I can see the signs starting to emerge of that, and I'm really pleased to see it. And I think as long as the developers can keep things, you know, pretty stable, like they don't need to be making any crazy moves in terms of on-chain development, especially not while the SmartBCH is kind of coming good in its own right. But the May upgrade is planned. Everyone's on board with that. That's great. Get through that, and then maybe, you know, plan another upgrade for 2023, like the prediction markets V3 stuff is kind of in the pipeline there. That sounds perfect to me, you know. So if I can get kind of word out to the community via this platform that, you know, I think we just let's just play that one a little bit on the conservative side and give the rest of the ecosystem a chance to flourish. But that's my thoughts on sort of permissionless systems, because the idea is once you have sort of a stable base, then you give space for those other things to grow, and that they can happen quite fast, but it has to just be given a little time to, it's like the soup or something, you got to simmer it a little while in the free market before it all comes good. So I don't know, I'm interested to hear from other voices in the scene what you guys think about. Are you very concerned about protocol development? Do you follow that much? Do you think the community is starting to pull together? Are we going to be in for another round of arguments because someone comes out of left field with drama? Where are we at on that front?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin Cash, it will always have like the purists, and I think despite all the drama and all that'll always hold true, and Bitcoin Cash will always be a very tough, vigilant coin. And with enough development around it, we'll find our spot in global adoption, or the thesis of the show is the world reserve currency. It does seem like there's very little infighting. It seems like the community is basically like, if we could have stayed this way the whole way, there would have been never a split, right? If we could have stayed committed to low fee and adoption, like it'll always be. And I wonder how this will be thought of in the future. Just like there's always like this hatred towards Bitcoin Cash because it seems like a knockoff of Bitcoin, right? If we will still hold on to the strong Bitcoin branding, or if we'll just be brand ourselves differently, like that's always a criticism. And I've even had lunch with someone prominent in the Bitcoin Cash community who was proposing changing the name to something like BitCash or something like. So it'll be those things could be contentious in the future if conversations like that continue and on how we brand ourselves. But as long as it always has the purest philosophy, I'll always be here. That what I got into in 2016 is free market currency that's committed to low fee, or we can send any amount of money to anyone in the world for a fraction of a penny. That's what I'm here for, and it's cool to see development built on top of it. I think SmartBCH is our next big catalyst. So I don't know, I'm really excited. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, to add to that, yeah, just adoption is definitely becoming more prominent. SmartBCH is, like hopefully the predictions that we put out earlier will be what actually happens next year. But we're starting to see more content, like we were saying, like a lot of content creators, and we even got a shout out this year from Andrei, Jikh. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he has almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube. So the eyes are getting on Bitcoin Cash, not just from little guys like me with like 2,500 subs. Like there is people with a big audience who are talking about Bitcoin Cash, and a big audience puts a lot of eyes on the coin. And hopefully we can see that, maybe it'll just be a bunch of small guys that continue talking, but that just increases the group. And hopefully like the YouTube community, it grows bigger and bigger with Bitcoin Cash, more eyes get on it. And I think that next year is going to be a huge year. I think it's going to be huge, and it starts off with little things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that Andrei Jikh video, yeah, I had I think it was the episode with Cheap Lightning, or maybe it was yeah, I think so. But I did an episode where we talked about it in detail when he came out with that video and so on. That was huge. You're right. And that video now has over 500,000 views, I'm pretty sure. And that just breaks it all down in detail. It's catching up people so much on the history, and a complete segment of people who are not already in the weeds and invested into all this stuff. So they're coming at it with a fresh mindset. And sort of, I've been following some of his channel content, and I was following it actually before he did that, but since then I've also been paying attention, and he's kind of picking and choosing a little bit. He just sort of picks his coins that he can kind of win no matter what, because he can make a video about every coin and say, wow, this is great. But it was definitely telling that BCH was one of the first ones. He's now done a bit of a series. He's got a bit more one about Cardano and one about Solana and different things like that, but none of them have gotten quite the in detailed depth and attention that he gave to BCH, nor has it kind of, those coins have all been the hype ones that were sort of jumping up out of nowhere, whereas BCH could have easily just never made it onto a channel like his, which is going to be very topical and based on what people are recommending that week or that month, or what is hot on the Reddit forums or something like that. So the fact that he went out of his way to really dig into that speaks a lot. And I in my mind, it's quite linked to the fact that Mark Cuban mentioned it as well, and even then Swizz Beats as well, that we saw too.
Yeah.
It's just this idea that anybody who looks into the history of crypto, you kind of can't get the whole story until you it's like the secret chapter that you need to unlock and read, because otherwise it doesn't all make sense how Bitcoin got to be where it was, why Ethereum is a different coin to begin with, how they all fragmented around, where the competition is going, all those things. So yeah, I think, you know, it's just that's as long as that story keeps being told by the BCH community, you only need to get a critical mass of you know, bigger external voices going, and suddenly it's on blast everywhere, right?
I mean,
if
sorry,
if you add some price hype, it'll be amazing. Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, I mean, if he keeps his eyes on it and then he makes a video eventually of like SmartBCH or something, that would be enormous. You know, like that would be amazing.
Yeah. Also this year, Cold Fusion has a couple million subscribers, made a video just about the history of Bitcoin and the block size war. And I noticed before Andrei was following other big blockers. I feel him, like others, their heart is in Bitcoin Cash, but being an influencer and following crowd type movements like Colin Talks Crypto, he's a big blocker, but people don't want to wait out the storm until Bitcoin Cash rebuilds their community. So I'm cool with being a foot soldier for that. And then as we continue to grow, they can come back in, and they're welcome with open arms, and we'll continue building.
Yeah, I think that really is, yeah, that definitely, you know, amen to that, right? Because to me, it's sort of this story of it's like a parabola, right? Where just you know, Bitcoin just shot out to this huge lead because they didn't have the chaos, they didn't have those following subsequent forks, they already, you know, ended up with the brand name, they already didn't make any obvious technical updates to the block size, so they weren't trying to figure out how to scale their coin. You know, they had it just sort of Lightning, which hasn't really gone anywhere for a few years, and now is sort of starting to come together. But of course, that whole time BCH has just been plummeting. Yeah.
Did you see that the Chivo wallet for El Salvador actually runs on Algorand? Have you read into that deeper? So it's not even BTC Lightning. So it's fascinating that even like you look at like someone like Anthony Pompliano, one of the biggest cheerleaders for Bitcoin BTC, like he's just even said in his own words, like, I believe the network effect is strong enough for us to eventually figure something out. Like, it's not like a real ethos or passion, or, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to follow the network and we'll figure it out. You know, like I'm going to stay prominent by attaching myself to like the biggest brand. And yeah, but I don't know, did you see that El Salvador is not running BTC Lightning in the Chivo? They're running an altcoin.
Yeah, I did. And we're going to have to wait and see what, you know, further details definitely remains to be seen about that, because, you know, it was kind of a situation, the early reports, like there wasn't sort of the follow-up, and you know, Mark Valzon, he's going to be, I swear he was publishing content about it. I'll need to catch up with him.
So is a shitcoin better than BTC Lightning?
Well, yeah, of course. And they've just snookered themselves yet again. You know, who is surprised? I was not, when that came up, you know, I didn't blink. I wasn't surprised, because it was always obvious that there's some shenanigans going. Every coverage of it that has been on this channel, I've been saying, yeah, but you know, they've got problems with the political system. They're doing it the wrong way from a top-down approach. They're not really that transparent about, you know, their reserves. It's clearly not, you know, had problems integrating with different wallets. They even released their own like wallet. Like what is that about? Why wouldn't they just, you know, team up with one of the existing wallets, just chuck them a bunch of funding and get them to be the official government partner? Well, it turns out they did do that, but they did it with a completely different cryptocurrency rather than something in the Bitcoin BTC ecosystem. You know, just behind the scenes, there's obviously just so many sort of backroom deals going on and so forth, and you really just can't, you know, I'm not surprised at all. And it's just, once again, it's kind of like the fake facade of BTC just completely exposed for not being the real cryptocurrency, real peer-to-peer groundswell for commerce, you know?
Yeah, okay. So does anyone here watch Andrew Schulz's podcast, Flagrant 2?
I never heard of it.
Okay, so it's just a comedy podcast. but it's got a fairly large team on it. And I was watching one last night where they were talking about Bitcoin, and these people, they have money, they're wealthy. I don't think they're whales in the crypto space, but they're like successful comedians. And they were talking about, they've had Anthony like Pompliano on, and he's given them the rundown on Bitcoin. And then months later, it's interesting to see Andrew talk about like he's very his thesis is Bitcoin, like BTC, is absolutely worthless, and the value of it right now is coming through. Oh, it's worthless, and it's one of the most predictable assets to invest in, because rather than having to go, a company like AT&T has to make a profit for their shareholders to make a profit for that company to be valuable. With BTC, you can just look at a risk assessment graph for human beings, because humans are predictable. And so this proportion of people are going to be selling at this amount, and it's just that cycle repeated over and over. So BTC might have become a completely worthless utility-wise asset, and it's just this like through and through speculative thing. And even people that are pro BTC are like, yeah, that's fine. So wait until they discover coins that are actually usable.
Yeah,
Glad to have you back, Ryan.
Get out there. Yeah. Jump in. What were you about to say before you just cut out there?
Yeah, my internet dropped. I'm sorry. I was just mentioning something to the effect, well, what Jikh was saying there. In terms of just using it and using the Bitcoin Cash blockchain and sending and receiving a payment, you already know right there that BTC could have increased its block size to 2 or 5 or 8. Like to me, it's like it's already pretty clear what was right, but the market is not actually using it, they're just speculating on price, and price tells them everything they need to know. But I was just going to add to Mark Falzon, who actually covered the Algorand. I had lunch with him. He came to the tournament, and I think he's going to be a big influencer for us moving forward. I like the way he's going to approach it. He wants to make it where the conversation is less, confrontational when Bitcoin Cash is brought up. It's just a normalized discussion, because there's so much still of that, civil war thing, and you can't talk about, even we struggle, right, about just talking about Bitcoin Cash, because you have to tell the story on Bitcoin with Bitcoin Cash. But eventually in the future, it may not necessarily be that, right? We'll be so far apart and have built such different communities in terms of core values and utility and infrastructure. I think normalizing that discussion is part of our, continued growth.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting, areas to that, and I think, he definitely does a good job of sort of trying to be like ameliorating everyone, to be sort of in the middle ground and not to be trying to take too much of a side or be too inflammatory or something like that. I mean, I wonder how we'll see that play out. I think he's doing a great job. I do follow a lot of his content, and maybe I'll get him on the show sometime if you'd be interested in that. But I think one thing that might kind of come around to him in a similar way, very interesting, was Kim.com, right? Was that there's videos, you can look them up. I've got them linked on the recommended section of bitcoincashpodcast.com, where Kim, when he came into crypto and he was trying to make a big deal out of things, he went to the BTC side and he said to them, look guys, I've been talking to the BCH side, they're still all hardcore, crypto anarchy and building real payment systems, and this is what people want. Like, why, and it seems like they've got the technical stuff to back it up, their blockchain's running fine, come on, can we talk about this? And he tried to be reasonable with them, for 3 or 4 months, or I don't know, a year, however long it took him. But the point was, he'd obviously talked to the BCH side and heard a lot of like butthurt and anger and everything. And then he went to the BTC side and found that they were also pretty, stuck in their ways. And he thought, okay, I can reconcile these things together. But then he basically relearned the lessons that everybody had already learned already, which was that there was just no getting past it. It just turned into like a divorce. It had just been, well, we split, you're going your way, I'm going my way, and just that's fine. We don't need to argue about it anymore. And so he did try that, and he went on that debate, with the BTC maxis, and ended up getting censored off their channel for sort of exposing, some of the flaws in their argument and so on and so forth. And so I think, Mark might end up kind of in a similar position where right now he's sort of like, yeah, I'm trying to be good with everyone. But even he, has increasingly had sort of chunks taken out of him. We've had run-in with the moderators at our Bitcoin, where his content is getting taken down, and Peter McCormack saying, yeah, but El Salvador, actually everything's great. And he's like, no, it's not. Look at all this content I've produced about how it is. So, there's only so many times you can run into that same crowd and have a negative experience before eventually you think, this is why everybody else doesn't bother to sort of try and play nice with them, because there's just no point. So if he can maintain that fair and balanced approach, kudos to him. But on the other hand, I sort of feel like the water wears away the stone on that one.
Are you referring to the conversation he had with Tone Vase, Kim.com, when he was sitting down and saying, look what they're building over here, and he did want to use Lightning for K.im, which again, this is something we're speculating. Kim.com is a legend because of mega upload, and like there's all this thought like, wow, he controlled 4% of internet traffic. Like imagine if we could get like a fraction of that, and everyone using Bitcoin Cash, like what that would do. So I recall seeing those, and he is a very good speaker, Kim. Like he's very good at controlling people who are losing their cool, and like if a BT Maxi like goes over the top and like start like in that conversation on Clubhouse when he was censored, like the guy was like losing his mind and calling him a scammer and all these things, but like he always kept his temperament, and that's always something that that's important. Sorry, my son's over here. He's ready to go play with Miles,
guest on the podcast. Say hi.
Miles, tell him, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
Let's go. There you go.
You got to start him. You got to start him young.
The next generation. That's where it's at.
That's the average. We need a commercial with that.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody clip that out, man. We got to get that. Imagine that as a viral Twitter video.
I'll work on something.
Get something going with like the heated debate, BTC versus BCH.
We got to do like some sponsored ads on Instagram with that.
And then just cut in there. What's your favorite Bitcoin? Perfect. That's the end of the debate. See you later. The next generation has already decided.
Get a little QR code for him. Get his post-secondary paid for already.
Yeah, that's it.
I got a video brewing in my head right now.
Perfect. I've got a couple of mates. By the way, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you have kids at the moment, I'm just saying, if the one thing crypto needs is time. If you got a kid and you get him a BCH and you just put it in storage, they got 15 years. They don't need to know about it. And then 18th birthday, here's a BCH, except it was bought 15 years ago. That's a pretty good, that's all or nothing, right? Like if it doesn't work out, well, it was a couple $100. And if it does work out, your kid is going to thank you for the rest of their life. So I'm just saying, kids have a lot of time. So maybe think about that.
My nephew was messaging me last night. He's 16 and he's looking for a way to buy crypto. And I honestly didn't know what to tell him. I sent him some exchanges that I use. And I just sent him like the shareable link from the Bitcoin.com wallet. And you can open that wallet. Typically with like the stock buyers, you use some kind of custodial services. Is there what's the best way to get young people into crypto?
Well, it's got to be to earn it. No, you're still here. So it's got to be earning it. I think if you are, that 16-year-old kid or anybody who's younger and wants to get into crypto, where can I get some crypto? Earn it. That's how it always works when you're 16 years old. You ask your parents and their friends and your local school and whatever, like, hey, do you have any odd jobs? You're kind of trying to get your first jobs or like mowing the lawn or like whatever you're doing, right? Just you do that, find those opportunities, and then say, hey, but pay me in crypto. I don't want fiat currency, and just make a peer-to-peer deal right there. Then no custodial, KYC, no needed driver's license, none of that. Let the adults sort that out, because they're already, plugged into all those systems, and just get paid directly. That's the whole point. You still got access to that no matter what age you are. That's the point. The blockchain doesn't discriminate.
And this year, the Tooth Fairy has started paying in Bitcoin Cash.
That's awesome. Is the opening clip going to be Miles saying that his favorite kind of money is Bitcoin Cash?
It is now.
You got it.
I like how you do those.
Yeah. Vlad, were you gonna jump in there?
No. I actually had nothing to say there.
All right, cool. Well, then let's crack on a bit to the sort of last few little segments of the show then. So we've got meme of the week. So this one takes a bit of explanation. This one's a bit of a deep cut. So meme of the week this week comes from Anders Bloom. So for those who don't know, which I would assume is most of my audience, Anders is a Danish, I'm pretty sure he's Danish. I really hope I didn't get that. I'm pretty sure he's Danish. He's a Counter-Strike global offensive video game commentator, right? So he works at the events and he sort of commentates on the esports streams. And he's really into Counter-Strike, obviously, video games, but he's also really into cryptocurrency and conspiracy theories, and also psychedelic enhancements to the lived experience. So you have to, I really enjoy his Twitter feed, because he has a lot of tweets that you kind of need to read with the context that there's a decent chance that he is high while accessing his Twitter feed, right? So a lot of his stuff, it's hard to tell whether it's a joke or whether he's serious or whether he's high, and that's kind of a fun game you get to play whenever you read his tweets. So this tweet came across my timeline this week, and it made me laugh. So with that, what I've just said in mind, his tweet was, "I've been thinking for a little bit here, because this talk of inflation is obviously a big concern and seems to be on the news more and more these days. And it occurred to me that if the value of the currency is decreasing because of inflation, how about we just print more money?" And this was like such a great take, because it could be any of them, right? He could be completely sober. He's a big fan of cryptocurrency. He could be, making a satirical stab at cryptocurrency, right? Or perhaps he had just had a massive dose of mushrooms, and he was in the exact state of mind to think, yeah, no, there's no problem. We'll just print more money. And at the end of the day, it will all work out. And the best thing about that, of course, is that the people who like fiat currencies don't need a heroic dose of mushrooms. And even they think that that's the solution, that you can just print more and get abundance of wealth by just handing out dollars to everyone willy-nilly. So I just thought this was a great example of wrong-headed thinking on the non-crypto side. It's hard to tell, it's basically satirical at this point when you see it from a crypto point of view.
So I don't know, Andres, is he a crypto enthusiast at all or no?
Yeah, so
Okay.
Anders, yeah, he loves cryptocurrency.
Okay.
He's kind of a little bit known for that. He tries to sneak it in there. I don't know if he likes Bitcoin Cash.
Sure.
I've never heard him mention that. I think he liked Ripple for a while, and he has his own takes on the scene and what's big. But because that's stirring around there in his brain, and yeah, he's really into a lot of like aliens and all those kind of things as well too. So he has some kind of off the wall takes, and this I thought was a perfect middle ground between, I'm not sure if he's serious or if he's not serious.
If he's into crypto, I would assume he's being a bit of satire, but it's interesting that you talk about mushrooms. I've actually been looking into microdosing, not macrodosing, psilocybin though, just for whatever reasons. Well, I won't go too far down that wormhole, but I could see him being, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to follow his work, because I fall down those wormholes myself. I'll leave you with that.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole in that regard.
I mean, I definitely think he's probably he was on something, but I think that like the thought was there, and I mean that's the reason why I'm in crypto. There's a serious thought behind the joke too to think about it, and it's like that's the reason why we're in cryptocurrency is because we're in the situation to where that it's a cold-hearted truth there. Like that's what we're doing nowadays. We're just printing out money, like it's nothing. Like, oh, how can we solve this solution? I'll just print out more money. Like it's not how it works, and that's why crypto is the solid replacement for it, and that's why a lot of us are in this game, and I mean at least the pure-hearted ones. So, and I believe that's a big majority of the Bitcoin Cash community holds those values, and to turn a joke into something serious, that's what. That's why I feel like on that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the point, right? It's that was another reason I thought to highlight, because it doesn't really matter whether he's joking or not. The point is the message is getting out there. This is more and more on people's minds. I was talking to somebody last night who was talking about, oh wow, the price of everything is just going up and it's crazy, and reality is just undeniable, right? More and more people are starting to look for these answers, and if you dig a couple layers deep and it's still confusing, you're still not getting the right answers, eventually it's kind of like, wait, this is what everybody's been talking about, this is what all this stuff is kind of about. I think cryptocurrency, like I said, its greatest ally is just time. Like all it has to do is just stay in the race, and as fiat kind of spirals further and further out of control, eventually everybody starts to wonder, like, what is going on here? And then that's it. Once you're down the rabbit hole, there's kind of no coming back. All right, so community comment of the week comes from Elon Musk. This was a bit of a joke on my part, because I don't know whether maybe in spirit he's part of the Bitcoin Cash community, being a fan of Bitcoin and large blocks. But this week he had a bit of a tiff on Twitter with Elizabeth Warren, the United States senator, who tweeted sort of impromptu of nothing, like or what's called apropos of nothing. I don't think he was really, maybe they've had some back and forth or whatever. I don't know, but it seemed like she fired the first shot here. And she tweeted, "Let's change the rigged tax code so the person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else." So with a link to this article, Elon Musk named Times Person of the Year. And I guess he was in a sort of scenario where he was probably feeling pretty good about being Times Person of the Year and probably having a pretty good day. And then now he's got Elizabeth Warren, giving him grief on Twitter. So he sort of fired back with this salvo of, and if you opened your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize I will pay more taxes than any American in history this year. Don't spend it all at once. Oh, wait, you already did. And to me, that was just how much more destroyed can you get, really? Like, it just goes to show the divide between the sort of narrative from the main political sphere or whatever, of like, Elon Musk, he just needs to pay some more taxes and that'll just dig us out of a hole. You can look up the stats. It's like a very simple matter of mathematics that, you could take Elon Musk's entire money, you could take every cent he has, and it would be like not even a drop in the bucket in terms of the US debt or, their overspending or all those things. So sort of demonizing him when he's out there trying to actually, make life multi-planetary, and he earned all his money. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of caveats and ifs and buts you can put in there, too. But the fact of the matter is he didn't tax it off someone else, and like he immediately just goes, if he's paying more taxes than anybody else ever has, it's pretty ridiculous to be saying he's freeloading and needs to pay, his taxes. It's just absolutely ludicrous. But yeah, Ryan, this is probably I imagine you enjoyed this tweet.
Yeah, it's she's really running a political campaign off it and encouraging people to donate. Like this guy freeloading off of the government, right? This guy that's created all these different companies and all this wealth for shareholders and all these jobs for people to have, is freeloading, right? When she lives off the taxpayer. it's an interesting contrast. So I'm hoping she's messing with someone that is that most people would be like, why are we picking a fight with this guy? Like, right? Like go after like the guy that's polluting someone, or like they're like, this is the wrong capitalist to say this is what we need to take this one down, right? So hopefully that sheds light into, getting rid of these kind of people in a in terms of, I don't know, whatever way the U.S. government's going in terms of which way they'll lean and how many personal freedoms and how much of your wealth you'll be allowed to keep, and how much inflation people will deal with. And just to touch on the inflation you talked about, we see it every day in our lives right now, and a lot of that is to do with the supply chain crisis. But I wonder when all the dust settles, like how much real inflation that's not like long term is going to be here to stay, because that'll be quite staggering. So I loved it. I thought it was great, and I really hope around election time she pays the price.
Vlad,
that's up in your way, Vlad, right? You deal with, you're in Massachusetts, right? How popular is Senator Karen?
We as a business owner, very, very, very popular. Obviously very sarcastic, but I want to like keep my political opinion on Elizabeth Warren just private. I'm going to keep that, but it's definitely fun to just watch this exchange right now. It's something this exchange is just something entertaining while crypto's down. It's something funny to watch, but it's just, I mean, if you have just like 2 cents in your head, like how does that make sense? He's paying more taxes than so many people, so many companies, like, and she wants more, and they always want more than they always want to bite off more than they can chew. So it's just funny to sit around and to watch the exchange right now. And obviously big Elon fan, and I like to see that exchange. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because it's just sort of like, and then I think Elon, he did go on, there was a few other sort of follow-up tweets and etc. He was obviously trying to rile her up a bit more, but so I think maybe he might have ended up taking it a bit too far. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, look, he gets he's busy trying to deliver a business and do all this stuff, and then I'm sure he just gets home from a day at work, he just loads up Twitter, and now he's getting flack here too as well too. I think a lot of the time maybe he just lets that stuff go, but every once in a while, it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. You just heard too many complaints that one day from somebody else needs something from you, and everyone can relate to that, right? You don't need to be Elon Musk to have a day where you just had a crap day at work, and then you get home and suddenly some other thing is coming up, and you just think, all right, that's enough. It's time to just fire back a little bit.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if people don't realize, like, after Elon created Zip2, he could have just like went home, right? Then he went and created PayPal, and he could have like bought a chain of islands and just sat there, right? But then he, created, reusable rockets and, affordable electric cars that people actually want to drive, right? Like why do you want to throw like this? Like, he doesn't have to do any of this, right? Like, he already has so much money, but now you want to just throw sand at him. I don't understand the motivation from like a human standpoint. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Because people like Elon move faster than they can regulate.
It's true. That's a great point.
That's true. He just is their worst enemy. Just one step ahead, and you can't go out, sort of trying to troll him to the public, because everybody's just like, I mean, obviously some people agree with that and think, okay, evil billionaires need to pay more money. But obviously a good chunk of the population is always just going to be like, look, he's putting up results. Like, what, how can you be, why are you hating on him? As if there's not better things for you to be spending your time on than one of the most productive people in society. Like, give me a break.
Wasn't Warren also the person that was just like memed like mad when they paraphrased, like, with DeFi, there'll be nothing left to regulate?
There's always a few good ones.
She's been one to attack crypto too. Like, anything that, like you were saying, that she can't regulate, and she doesn't feel like as a politician she could put her thumb on it. Seems like she wants to attack from the people that are just out here, trying to live their lives and do whatever they want to do. It seems like she takes an issue with.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. All right. Well, then let's move into, second last kind of slide here is message to the community every week. And I guess this is sort of the sign off for the year. a bit of a capper to how it is. In this one, I've also added a little bit of a extra prompt there that maybe you could sort of theme your answer around, which is, if you're going to sum it up, 2021 was the year of what? Obviously, maybe not just like BCH, but I don't know, something specific, or maybe in the crypto scene, or maybe just in the world in general, and what 2022 will be the year of. So I don't know, Vlad, you're looking ready for this one. You're first up. Message to the community. What does the BCH community need to hear?
Yeah, so I think 2021 was the year of recognition, is the year that everyone kind of really got to dive into what cryptocurrency is, what it can do for the community, how it can help people, how you can pull away from the centralized banking system and from fiat. And then we go into 2022, which is the year of revelation. And it's the year that people start to 5 to 10x SmartBCH, or just in general start utilizing cryptocurrency more, and on a serious note, to actually start like implementing it more into businesses, into day-to-day transactions, or just in general, just start to start investing more heavy into it. I think that people are starting to become more confident with it. People are earning more trust in it. You look back in 2017 when people were talking about Bitcoin, the only thing they were saying was people are like transporting or like able to like transact cocaine free on the internet or something like that. That was the word, at least when I was in 2017, that was the word that people were talking about Bitcoin. And now we're talking in 2021, and we're talking about an actual like alternative to fiat currency. That's where we're at right now, what we're talking about. And then who knows what's going to be in 2022, let alone 2025. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, great words for it. Recognition and revelation. There's some heavy hitters. Ryan, you're up next. Message to the community.
Yeah, I would say 2021 was a year of recalibrating, and I'd say 2022 is a year of attacking, right? So I think we've recalibrated our network. We've increased our transactions. We built things like SmartBCH on top of it. And 2022 is that year when we attack and garner more market share. And even though I do expect a volatile market, Bitcoin Cash is one of those coins like that I will, I don't mind bearing. I don't know if we go to, and Jeremy, I maybe want to pose you this question, because it seemed like a very strong hodler. If Bitcoin Cash went to 5,000 in 6 months, you wouldn't look to take a little off the table?
No,
given what you know.
No, but I'd probably, I might be interested actually in sort of those any hedge solutions that they're starting to come out with, where you can sort of lock. If I felt like we were definitely at the peak of some parabolic, rally, but I wouldn't probably be interested in selling it or anything. More just like, oh, can I, if I could use one of those any hedge contracts and just lock it at a stable value for 2 weeks and just wait for the hype to die off or something. Maybe I would be interested in that. I don't know. For me, it's just that I've been in crypto so long and I've tried trading. I'm sure some people it works, but for me, I just suck at it. You got to know what you're not good at, basically, right? Sure. And every time I tried, I end up with less crypto than I started with. So, I've just learned that lesson so many times that now I just don't bother, and I just sort of put my energy on accumulating more, just earn more money, really, like, instead of trying to time the market. As much as I feel like I understand cryptocurrency, that's something I'll probably never understand, is the exact ways that it move. And every time you think it can't go lower, it goes lower, and every time you think it can't go higher, it goes higher, and every time you think it's for sure fine for a week, it isn't. Like, that's just how it goes, really. So yeah, I
understand that. So that's my answer. I would say 2021 was recalibrate. 2022 is an attacking year, and no, I definitely get where you're coming from there. But I we'll see if me and Vlad are right that we get a blow off top in 2022, and if not, we'll just you do buy into the thesis though of the halving cycle, right? Like the market clearly seems to follow that trend. So I would say, like, I have no problem just accumulating for the next 3-4 years before I try to do this again, and we'll see what my wealth looks like then.
Yeah, with the CBBI, I did when I did a full breakdown of all that. I mean, I think, yeah, largely he's sort of backwards rationalizing a lot of them. It's just selection bias. There's 100 statistics, and the 10 that have worked, he's picked those. And I mean, he's even then started taking some out and putting new ones in. I sort of criticized him for that, but I did say, of those original metrics, I like the Google search indicator. To me, that's a huge indicator. That one really matters, because if people are hype, that shows up. And I do like the halving as well too. I do think that, and I do think there is a cycle. I just think that this cycle has kind of mostly run its course, basically because it hasn't been followed up by the real adoption and the real consume. I think consumers drive so much of the sentiment, basically. Jet, do you have a message to the community 2021, the BCH community?
I do, but it's not great. I feel like the past couple messages I've had have been like kind of negative, but
that's fine. I'll finish it off with a positive one. So
okay.
Unload.
So I think the past couple years, but I think I can say that 2021 was like, it was. I want to use extreme words. Like I want to say like it was like the second death of Satoshi, and what I mean by that is, it has become harder for me this year to live off of Bitcoin Cash. And we have seen a incredible rise in speculation. I mean, look at the 22 coins ahead of Bitcoin Cash right now. So yeah, I'm kind of, but at the same time, I've almost like mentally come to terms with that too, where I don't fit the speculators market. I'm using this as peer-to-peer cash. And to kind of speak on Ryan's point, there's absolutely nothing price-wise that would get me to sell for Canadian dollars. I would look for buying services and products, but I do not ever want to step foot back into Canadian dollars once I have Bitcoin Cash. And that's also a taxable transaction, which part of the reason why I'm in cryptocurrency at all is to starve the state. So I'm not giving them that opportunity. And I think because we have such an increase in retail speculators, we might start to see people that are looking for ways to use that without going back into fiat money and paying taxes on those things, just for like selfish reasons. And that might lead to 2022 being a year of utility. And that'll be exciting for me. But I've been saying this to Jeremy for a while. Like I want people to use money, even if it's speculative, because it'll funnel them down to usable coins.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, my final message for the year is sort of on a similar note. I think to 2021 for me, it was a year of rebuilding. The community was quite stressed after the hard fork. BCH has had obviously a tough time, not in terms of its fiat price going down, because as we saw, it's basically flat, but in terms of other coins kind of moving past it. But I don't see that as a big problem. I would only be worried about that if I was not seeing real growth in the community. And I think in the mind share of the world, crypto is currently skyrocketing, and as it gets more and more used, at the end of the day, you can't fight with reality, right? So as much as everyone wants to say Ethereum is sick, but somebody is paying those hundreds of dollars of fees. And if you're that person, you're not feeling great about it, really, unless you're already a crypto billionaire. And if you are, then you probably don't, represent the rest of the market. So it's kind of irrelevant. So in that sense, yeah, I think for the BCH community specifically, it was a year of regrowth. And I really like Vlad's point about recognition. I think that's definitely true. For 2022, I kind of feel it might be a bit early. I think like Joel that we had last week, and like Jet was saying, they're sort of looking for a renaissance in payment coins, and I think that will happen. But so I'm instead going to say I think 2022 will be the year of independence. I think the BCH community is going to start focusing on itself. It's going to start cooperating with itself, that ultimately money is just a tool to facilitate cooperation between people. And I think we're starting to wise up to the point of, wait, why are we all fighting our one little individual battle against, the Leviathan, against the state, or against people in our local area who don't get it? we don't need to. Instead, we should just link or just do stuff like this, just bring together people who are already on the same page. And thanks to the magic of the internet, we don't need to be geographically concentrated. I mean, that's nice, but it doesn't matter. 100 people is 100 people, whether you get them transacting online or you get them, transacting in one physical place. So I think really just opening those community communication channels and giving people more opportunities to connect with other people who are already thinking the way they are. We don't need to necessarily be trying to expand out to new people. We just need to create more links among the people that we already have, and the result of that will be a very productive, thriving economy, and that will naturally draw more people into it. So I think that's the way it is, and I think the BCH community has got over a lot of that sort of insecurity and being in BTC's shadow and stuff like that, and it started to produce its own content. Like this podcast is one example, but both Vlad and Ryan do that, and there's plenty of other channels out there like that too. And the more and more that the BCH is striding off in its own direction, the more and more that it's going to be that other coins in the market are going to see that happening, and the conversation just will have moved past them, particularly the BTC crowd who've lost control of everything. So I think, we just need to focus on ourselves and just do a killer job and just ignore the competition, because we're going to just make them irrelevant by just outperforming them. That's the free market. The pressure and the burden is on us, but it's on everyone. But I'm very confident that the people who like BCH and who see the mission and the idea are passionate about that, and they're not going anywhere, and we're gonna work harder and smarter than anyone. I'm gonna do my bit anyway. So I think that's where the community's headed. I look forward to looking back to it in a year's time. All right, so final message then is just the BCH community had this little campaign called Bring Your BCH Home, which was to essentially just encourage everyone to take their coins off centralized exchanges. If they had it was kind of spurred by these theories about BCH being shorted on the markets and stuff. And, maybe there's some effectiveness to that. Certainly it's better than doing nothing, but just everybody for 2021, you're going to have some Christmas holidays or some free time or whatever. Just take that half an hour or that hour to just sort out, make sure you've got your backups of your private keys, make sure your security's on point, take your coins off exchanges, and that's where they're supposed to be in your wallet. So I want to do my bit to add to the community sentiment that has kind of arisen around this December 30, take all your coins off exchanges by then. Right, so that will pretty much do it for the show then. That's it for 2021. Like I said, 35 episodes. It's been pretty cool, and we'll be definitely back next year with a fresh season, the 2022 edition of the Bitcoin Cash podcast. I've already got a couple of small tweaks and things that I'm working on for that, so everyone can look out for that. But I'll give all the guests the time to make some shout outs. But as usual, you can check out the podcast at www.bitcoincashpodcast.com. I want to shout out to refreshtimer.cash. That is a project. It looks kind of like Satoshi Pyramid, actually. It got mentioned in the chat.
That's Satoshi Stack, which doesn't exist anymore, but I can tell you about that.
Okay, well, that's kind of kicking off. I haven't looked into that, but so approach at your own risk, but people can check that out, refreshtimer.cash if they're interested. Thank you to all the donators to the show, obviously. And my shout out goes to the community of everyone who listens to this show, because I started the year with 0 YouTube subscribers and 0 Twitter followers and 0 Noise.cash subscribers, and that's now in the hundreds, nearly up, getting into 1,000 in some cases. So that's just absolutely amazing, and thank you all for your support and interest. Right, Vlad, where can people find you, and do you have any special shout out you want to give?
Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, literally just my name, Vlad Ivanov, VLAD IVANOV. Just type in BCH or Bitcoin Cash afterwards, and you'll find me. Otherwise, you might find like an actor from Europe. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter, the Vlad Ivanov, same handle on Noise.cash. And I just want to also throw out the Bitcoin. If you type in on Twitter, Bitcoin Cash Out, I will still be pushing to make this game a legitimate thing. I do see a future with it where like it could be like a weekly game or like even just like a monthly thing where like you just accumulate the profits at the end of the month to raffle them off. That might be more easier for people instead of putting in every single week. Bitcoin Cash Out, that's the Twitter handle, and I'm going to try to push for that, maybe even give it a .cash website. So you can contribute to that as well. There's a QR code on the actual profile picture of the Twitter, so you can contribute to the project. But I do plan on pushing that forward going into the next year to increase transactions on the chain.
Yeah, we'll definitely put links to that in the description and get people to that. Ryan.
Yeah, I first want to say, Jeremy and Jet, thank you so much for having us today, and just having the podcast in general. I think it's so important, and you guys do such a good job on just bringing great quality content to the community. Like, I think it really gives the Bitcoin Cash community a nice little hub of like really solid groundwork. So shout out to you guys. I really appreciate all the work you do and having me on for the second time now. If you guys want to follow my content, if you're not already, you can just search my name on YouTube, Ryan Giffin. There's no R there, Giffin. It's Scottish, not Irish. And you can also follow me on Instagram, rgiffin89, also Noise.cash, Ryan Giffin 2, and just follow along. And I'll be looking to, if you guys really would like to, I'm trying to, in the next actually a few weeks here, I'll have planned out my second annual Bitcoin Cash event, and any kind of feedback to help me grow adoption in my area. We're all in our different pockets of this planet, right, that we can help bring adoption to. Please feel free to share with me on how we can continue to grow our movement and the belief in what we're doing. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Jet, last one.
So my shout out would actually be for the entire Bitcoin Cash community. I do specifically have to shout out Roger and Mark DeMassel and Omar, if you're still in the chat. Without you guys, I wouldn't have gone to school to be a developer. I wouldn't have ended up I don't think I would have ended up being the producer for this podcast or working in the space as much as I have in the past 6 months-ish. So yeah, I'm like extremely grateful for that. And yeah, I guess Jeremy, you get the final shout out for me, because I think you've kind of tied me down to things a little bit better, because I sit in some of the more insular chat groups that get like bitter pretty quickly. So having positive guests on and seeing the groundwork that gets done has been very beneficial for me. Thank you, Omar. I see you in the chat.
All right, cool. Well, that will do it for the year. So to all the listeners, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Stay safe. Take it easy. Rest up a little bit. Everybody needs to rest and recharge. And we'll see you in 2022. Till next time.
Christmas in your wallet, please. Who knows why exchanges try to maintain custody. In your accounts you'll find me. Bring me home for Christmas, and please back up your keys.
I mean, that's what Bitcoin's all about, isn't it? Taking control back from third parties who want to make decisions for you. Like when you can spend your money, or who you can send it to. This holiday season, remember why we're here. Not to make oodles of cash or buy Lamborghinis. We're here to free the world.
In your accounts you'll find me with the deposit. And please back up your keys. And please back up your keys.
No, really, it's a really good idea. Back up those keys.